Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Trackless Sim Racing. I am Eric Lukasian, and I'm joined by yours truly, Kuja Terekov. Hello, Kuja. How are you doing today?
Doing well, thanks for asking. Should be a good, exciting doubleheader we've got for you of some GT4 action and ACC.
I am stoked. We do have a doubleheader rookies tonight, and then we have our GT4 Open. So many things. And we have a hype train going already, Kuja. This is super exciting.
Heck yeah.
Amazing. Thank you guys for the support. Jaeger, thank you. Mariko, thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Doc Milby, the legend, hello. How are you doing? Let us, give me 1 second, and then I can get us into the stream itself. Hope everybody's doing well. Kuja, Zolder, what do you think?
Green light, go, go, go.
Personally, I'm a big fan of Zolder. It's a nice little tight layout, it's got a nice flow to it for me at least. I don't know. I'm kind of different in that way, I guess, compared to some people. Some people don't really like how Zolder works in their like sim to their mind, but to me, I kind of like the flow of it. Very tight, intricate corners, some very bumpy chicanes. You have to navigate just right to get the track limits correct too. And so yeah, it provides quite a unique challenge compared to other tracks.
I was gonna say, to me, and I hate to oppose you, but Zolder is the opposite of flow. It's got no flow to it. It's just brakes and chicanes and throw it up over curbs and things like that, which it could be fun, you know, if you know how to do it. But for a simple, non-talented, sometimes driver, sometimes streamer like me, it tends to be a challenge.
Yeah, I totally get that too. Like, especially this section we're seeing now, I kind of really like this little uphill part down to the tight little hairpin up at the top of the hill. And yeah, like you said, all the chicanes and tight braking zones certainly does break up the track a little bit. But yeah, it's like, it just depends on kind of how you manage the track too. So I definitely understand where you're coming from.
I think my thing is the chicanes. That's what I have trouble with. I just always struggled with the chicanes.
Yeah, fair enough. It's very difficult to get them right completely, as we're seeing here. If you mess up the first part, it's really hard to get that second part completely right before the main straight. But yeah, that first chicane, especially with the big bumps on the insides, is really hard to navigate, especially if your car might not quite be set up for a bumpy ride. So certainly a few instances of a cars can really jump over those curbs, and then you see it kind of bounce up and down after it lands. So yeah, it really just depends on which car you use, how you have the car set up, and kind of your driving style overall too, of negotiating all the chicanes around here.
Yeah, that being said, I mean, while I may have challenges driving this place, it definitely seems like some of the others do not. Incredibly tight at the top of the grid here. Herald in P1, but only 0.045 seconds behind Mariko Yatanashi, one of the subscribers, resubbers here, doing an amazing job trying to keep Diaz honest and giving great competition. It sounds like I was reading chat earlier, and everybody seemed pretty close. I mean, top 8, I think, within a second of each other. So we're expecting some good competition here at Zolder tonight in the Rookie Series.
Yeah, very tight gaps all throughout the field. Of course, a few drivers still yet to complete a lap, maybe potentially serving penalties from the race before. So we'll have to wait and see how their race pace plays out, if that is indeed the case. A couple of drivers already in the pits seem to be pretty happy with the lap times they've got, as we only have 1.5 minutes left in the session, so not enough time to get out on an out lap and do a push lap, unfortunately for those in the pits. But quite a few drivers still on track trying to improve their times. Vladislav Maverick here in the 74 AMG. Current best time is a 1:37.9, 1.1 seconds off the good of pole position, but still out on track, still trying to improve that time.
So for those that don't know, Vlad's like brand spanking new to sim racing, picked it up just before the Rookie Series started and has been grinding, like really working it, really trying hard, and it shows. I mean, he's ahead of some people who have years of experience, and he's quite hard on himself. Actually, he gets very disappointed not to be on the top spot pretty much every single time. So just love that competitive aspect that sim racing brings to Trackalicious. It's competitive paired with the camaraderie of competing with each other.
Yeah, you're certainly right. It almost feels like racing almost feels like you're kind of racing with a team in a sense, even if you are racing against each other. You all want to do the best that you can. You don't want to really interfere with each other, but you still want to race as hard as you possibly can and compete for that top spot.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of cool because we have the timing system. For those that don't know, if you join any of the Trackalicious leagues, exclamation point times in our Trackalicious league channels will give you the practice times that were set in the practice server. Now, that is really fun. It kind of gives your hand away for those truly competing, but it also tells you how many laps people have driven, how hard they've been practicing, and the lap times that they've been performing. Now, who is gonna want to keep those kind of things a little close to their chest? Will, kind of competing for the championship, and I'll bring up the numbers, the standings here soon. But Will, I think Herald, Maverick, a bunch of guys really close in the top of the championship fighting for points.
Yeah, pretty close competition we've seen so far out of this season. Yeah, really hard to separate any of the top drivers, really, with especially with two races up for grabs today, two 20-minute races back to back. So yeah, really a lot of points available for all the drivers, and they could, if one driver from fourth finishes in first and the driver from first finishes in fourth, those championship positions could completely swap around.
Critical, absolutely critical, and you made a great point, and it is the reason why. And I'll maybe let you explain it to them. I don't know if you're familiar, Kusha, but we have the first lap super penalties here at Trackalicious for the Rookie Series.
I'm not too familiar, so I'm unfortunately not too aware of that.
That's okay. I will let people know. So what happens here at Trackalicious? Some people understand it. Actually, most people have kind of come around and do understand it. Others complain, and I get it. But if people have contact in the first lap, we either give them a pit start penalty or a quali ban. So those who have contact late, it could have been avoided contact, get a quali ban. Those who have like pretty heavy contact on lap one get a full pit start. And the reason for that is all we're trying to do is just encourage people to learn to be safe on lap one. You don't win the race on lap one and corner one. You can definitely lose it, though.
Yeah, that is absolutely true. You don't want to cost your race on lap one or potentially cause a big pileup and ruin the race of all your fellow competitors behind or in front. So yeah, that is a good system to implement as well as trying to get around on lap one safely. You certainly do want to try to push hard. Lap one is one of the best times to gain positions, but it is also one of the most dangerous times to gain position, as you might gain a place, but you could also lose all of it instantly.
Yeah, and before we get onto the grid here, just want to say hi to Busta T16 running 131s. I expect that is a GT3 lap time, which is a good start. Busta, I invite you to join our rookie league here in the GT4s. These guys are getting incredibly good. Some likely to graduate out of here. Black Mustang Mustage. I misread that. Correcting that it's probably a GT4 time. I hope everyone's doing well. Let's get right into it and do the grid here in P1. Mariko Yatanashi topping the charts here, doing a fantastic job. In P2, we have Austin Doyle. Will go coming in P3, the Silver Tiger Racing Janetta here. In P4, coming over from DRL Degen Racing League, our friends over at DRL, Mitch Narati, the Canadian Hungarian, Andy Estevez in P5. We have Dooku in P6. We have Vladislav Maverick in P7, representing Ukraine. Colin Sugg in P8. Lots of fighting we saw from Colin. Another G-Gen here. Tyler Morgan in P9. And Spady Bud rounding off the top 10. Who do we have in 11th here, Kuja?
In his 11th, we've got Vicente Moreira in the first of the Chevy Camaros. Just behind him, starting from the pits, it looks like, is going to be Joan Perez in the 20 Porsche. Aaron John in 13th place in the Mercedes number 24 machine. Just behind, Frederick Velez in the 787 machine of the Aston Martin, 14th on the grid. Behind them, Wade Jorgensen in the 707 Mercedes. Very neat looking livery there. Starting from the pits, I believe, is going to be Shane Sullivan in the 617 BMW. Also starting from the pits, Dr. Porkchop, the 71 Aston. Lily Chambers is going to round out the pit stop entries in 18th. And Diaz Herald on the grid, on the formation lap, not starting from the pits, but starting from last on the grid in 15th in that 29 Aston Martin.
Fantastic. 19 cars here at Zolder. Only 10 corners, as we discussed earlier. Many more rounds, they're just not corners.
Yeah, the track map at Zolder is certainly interesting. On one of the official track maps, it only lists that it has 10 corners. However, the corners that we saw the drivers pass through on the formation lap just now is all considered turn 7. So the chicane, the first right-hander, the left-hander, and then that big U-turn is all considered one corner. So yeah, it'll be will be interesting to see how they negotiate all the corners as we approach the start of the race.
Yeah, as they come around the final chicane here. Is that one corner or two corners as I bring the map up here? Let's see.
It is also just one corner technically, turn 10.
Yeah, you only turn your steering wheel once. maybe this is an ambitious combination of just cutting the track, you know, just take a straight line right across and that's the one turn that they get. It's just a kink if you take it the right way.
Yeah, I guess that's what they had in mind.
Alrighty, we are set up here. Everybody lined up, getting side by side, 2x2 formation. Yatanashi in the front, Doyle right next to each other, and we have green. Looks like they get a pretty decent start. Mariko maybe a little bit slower. Looks like the Janetta will go really getting on there, and some side-by-side contact, which isn't going to be in their favor for the next week's race. But Doyle and Yatanashi do go side-by-side. Doyle loses out on that, dropping a spot and go up into second place right behind Yatanashi. Yatanashi maintaining that P1 position.
Yeah, good defensive move from Yatanashi, a bit aggressive on the outside, pushing the Porsche. Now we see him cutting a little bit wide, just dips a few wheels into the gravel. This might give the Janetta an opportunity into the braking zone of the first chicane. Not quite having a good enough overlap to pull that off as the timing table on the left cycles through. We'll see just who gained or lost positions. The Porsche behind the Janetta looking quite aggressive, getting quite close. Janetta looking really strong on the brakes behind the Aston of Moriko Yatanashi. Ooh, a little bit of a wiggle from the Janetta. That's not gonna help him in his pursuit of P1. Might even lose out P2 to the Porsche behind of Doyle. We'll see what happens as they go up the hill, around the small kink, and up to one of the really tight hairpins of the track.
Yeah, it looks like Ngo does have a wiggle, and Doyle looking very aggressively to take that P2 position, but Ngo managing to do a great job defending that spot. Ngo, winner of one or two of the, I know at least one of the races last week, so we know that he knows how to perform. Now he just has to execute here at Zolder. Now the grid this is what I love about this league, right? This is what I love about that lap 1 rule. Look, we have 0 cars turned around. Everybody, there's a bit of argy-bargy, as they say, between P1 and P2, and Doyle dropping down to that 3rd place, but everybody made it around. Some people starting from the pits to learn their lesson from last week's shenanigans. But yeah, super tight racing. We have a bunch of cars here side by side. Oh, as I say that's so unfortunate, as Estevez gets Maverick into wiggle. Maverick now trying to make his way back onto the grid. Let's see if we can catch what exactly happened there. I was trying to follow Mitch there as Estevez and Maverick get into a battle. 2 side-by-side battles. Nayarati, I'll get that right before the end of the day. Nayarati does seem to catch up, and just it seemed like Vlad was just a bit too tight on the exit for Estevez to make it through, for them both to make it through safely, and unfortunately they both lose a handful of spots. Nayarati now up into P4. The Rogue Element Racing BMW here, following a lot of themes that I've seen from them before in the midnight purple and starry themed liveries that Nayarati does put on for show.
Yeah, good looking sparkles from the metallic colored paint on the BMW as it tries to gain up into one of the podium places. A bit of a gap though, 6 seconds to make up to Doyle in 3rd place. As we see in the foreground, they go side by side. Doyle looking to go through the inside of turn 1, and he gets the move done. We'll see if he can defend it though. The Ginetta we saw earlier pretty good on the brakes. But Doyle able, oh my goodness, on 2 wheels. Holy crap, that was crazy. Up on 2 wheels, but able to keep the car pointed in the correct direction. Oh my goodness.
I'm gonna go back. I wanna see that from inside. Give me the right cam here, car.
Yeah, a good move on the inside, and then it just seems to just stick it on the inside too much, really riding the curb. Just bounces over the substances. Oh my goodness!
That's epic.
Wow. Yeah, that was crazy.
Amazing job by Doyle keeping it together, really. I mean, all things considered, that was phenomenal. I mean, I for sure would have gone into the next zip code if I had that happening to me. But wow, what a great move to be able to maintain control as we see more battles. And it's not just one, it's 2 by 2. You got Nayarati and Estevez side by side, and you got Bud and Morgan. A bit of a DRL crew sandwich here with Morgan and Nayarati and the BMW and the Aston Martin. This is some phenomenal racing here today, Kuja.
Yeah, these 4 are really in a tight battle. The BMW and the Aston in front of the Mercedes arguing for track position, getting a little bit bumper to bumper, side by side action, getting a little bumpy, and we might see a 3-wide battle down the main straight if the Mercedes can pick its spot. All the meantime, in the background, the Aston Martin's still trying to make a look through. Oh, and Estevez making contact, forcing his own Aston a little bit wide. That's going to give the position to the Mercedes of Spady Bud, moving up into 5th place. Estevez able to defend from the Aston behind, but a little bit of side-by-side contact with the BMW, costing the Aston a little bit of wiggle, or making the Aston wiggle and costing him a position to the Mercedes. Now going to try to maintain the gap and stay on the tail and look for any mistakes in front, as we see the Mercedes trying to pull a move on the BMW after he dipped a wheel into the gravel, slowing him down. Great move into the braking zone, able to stick his bumper in front. The Aston with a great overlap, pushing the Mercedes through and able to get through the BMW. My goodness, action all throughout these 4.
Oh my goodness, they're so close to each other. They're like ping-ponging off of the walls, practically. The walls being the bumpers and the doors, and this is one of the things that I've been talking to Spady for many seasons and a bunch of other people. It's like, just sit and be consistent and wait, and the doors will open for you in the rookie series. Not all the drivers have the consistency that the pros do, where you're really forced to make a strong, calculated, really driven move. But in the rookie series, you just have to sit there and wait for the others to make a mistake. And we see Estevez's immense amounts of aggression working in Spady Bud's favor. Spady now up into 4th position with Estevez challenging aggressively from behind.
Yeah, we saw a really aggressive push from the Aston down that back straight. Now they're going side by side into turn 1. Estevez around the outside. Does he have the grip? Oh, not quite alongside the Mercedes, able to have a good overlap, but are they going to do it again into turn 2? The Aston has the inside line, which stays the inside line for the next few corners. We'll see if he can get his nose inside and through. The Mercedes really likes to stick it around the outside, finds a good amount of grip, and they're still side by side for around 3 corners as they approach the first chicane. Big braking zone coming up. We'll see who's going to stay ahead. The Aston really able to pull ahead through the braking zone, pulls ahead of the Mercedes, and takes 4th place away from Spady Bud.
I know Spady lost a position there, but that is some of the best driving I have ever seen from him. Kudos to Spady for going a whole 3-4 corners side by side with Estevez and not causing contact. That's phenomenal. Credit to you, Spady. Great job. Huge improvements over the last couple of seasons, and love to see it. And that battle between Estevez and Spady really giving Morgan and Nairati the opportunity to get closer, and Spady makes a mistake. Just enough for Morgan to overtake. Sorry, Nairati to overtake. Morgan taking advantage of well, and those two are up into the P5 and 6 positions. Now, this heated battle has been immense, but there's more brewing just behind. As Dooku challenging Sug. Sug seems to do such a great job in qualifying and constantly getting challenged in the last couple of races that we've seen. Sug, maybe it's just a Porsche thing that has great ability to qualify, but that McLaren so hungry for that P8 position. Sug had done a phenomenal job through 10 or 15 minutes of defensive driving last week at Kyalami, but just eventually succumbed to the superior speed of the car behind. But Sugg so far doing a phenomenal job with 11 minutes left in race 1 here in the rookie series.
Yeah, just almost at the halfway point of the race, so much action already, and we can only imagine there's going to be so much more as the whole entire field is really close together. As we see almost 10 cars down one straightaway. A couple of mistakes, so it looks like Sugg making a little bit of a mistake on the exit of this chicane. This might give Dooku a chance to overtake into the next corner, turn 7 officially, even though there's 4 corners. Oh, a little bit of contact between the Porsche and the McLaren. The Aston Martin get now side by side with the Porsche, able to go through into 9th place. We'll see if the Mercedes behind will be able to overtake the Porsche as well. Unfortunately, on a track like this, one little mistake can really cost you a lot. Oh, as we see contact between the Aston and the McLaren. The McLaren getting pushed out into the grass, gonna have to try to rejoin safely. Doing so in the back. This is so much action on screen here. The Mercedes behind the battle, trying to pick their way through. Oh, and there's contact between the Porsche and the Aston.
Where are they going? They're taking that kink line that we talked about earlier. Just creating their own track. And look at these cars. While they started pretty phenomenally clean in lap 1, lots of damage on the front of these cars. But hey, it's the rookie series. Everybody's really learning how to deal with traffic, deal with distances ahead. And while our immense penalties do apply for the lap 1, they do not apply for the rest of the race. We're a little bit more lenient in the rest of the race, following a more standard type penalty systems where we do look at things and we see people just go and say, you know what, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. And you're expected to make a mistake at this stage of your racing career. But by golly, you were saying so many cars so close to each other. Not all of the cars though, as we see Yatanashi and go all the way up into P1 and P2, having distanced themselves from the rest of the grid. Now, Doyle had immense amounts of pace, just seems to have dropped off a little bit. Not quite sure why. Could just be a Porsche thing. Maybe it's just not well suited at this track, but definitely Atanashi and Ngo are taking huge advantages of being in relatively clear air. No one ahead, no one behind. Just focusing on each other with 8 minutes left to go. and really Will needs to find some magic. He has done so in the past. He does find some late race pace, but Yatanashi's going to be quite a challenge. I know Yatanashi's put quite a bit of practice in this week, topping the charts or close to the top at the very least. But yeah, we'll have to tune back in and see what they're up to. As Porkchop and Maverick now going side by side. Maverick with a lot of damage. Porkchop challenging from behind, making another mistake. This might be the opportunity for Porkchop to look on the outside. Are they gonna pull a Spady? But no, Porkchop manages to throw it on the outside and make that move stick for P10.
Yeah, unfortunately on the front of Vladislav's car, we see a bit of damage. Picked that up a little bit earlier in the race. In this corner, actually just not quite being able to negotiate side by side and just getting spun around, but still able to recover well back into 10th place in that 74 Mercedes. Good move from Porkchop though, getting through on the outside of turn 2, finding the grip and finding the speed and just pulling off a pretty great move.
Yeah, it was pretty good, But Vlad is carrying quite a bit of damage, so I'm sure that's hurting. As we see Dooku again in some battles. That McLaren does have some incredible straight line speed from what I hear, but so does the BMW. I drove the BMW probably a year and a half, 2 years ago in the GT4 series, and that thing had immense straight line speed. It did also have crazy amounts of understeer on turn-in and crazy amounts of oversteer on exits, so I'm not sure whether it was the greatest car to drive, but Riley Manier, one of our previous champions, managed to do just fine with it. I think it was just a skill issue on my end. As Shane Sullivan tries to stay ahead. No, makes a mistake. And
we thought, like you mentioned there, yeah, the oversteer coming into play for the BMW, just kind of hopping over the curb and not being able to ride it out and just being a really kind of a stiff machine, it seems like, and just kind of overturning itself and not being able to hold it. It's going to give the position to the McLaren of Dooku here, who's going to try to catch up into that top 10, 3.7 seconds back. We saw he had a bit of an incident earlier, might be carrying a little bit of damage on that McLaren, but hopefully not too much to where it impacts his pace.
Yeah, looking pretty clean overall. Some stuff on the side, maybe scratches on the back, but generally not too crazy. But we do have Wade Georgeson here behind Shane Sullivan now. Shane having made that mistake. I wonder if Shane has the pace to walk away from Wade, or is Wade's cleaner looking car gonna have the pace to give Shane the challenge? Now Shane has been quite a bit farther up in the grid in the previous races, so I'm not quite sure how this is gonna play out. Now wait, that's not quite the line that you're expected to take. You're supposed to take the corners, but hey, you got 3 limits, and I'm sure they're gonna tell you when they run out.
Yeah, track limits really come into play at Zolder, especially trying to negotiate those chicanes quickly. You try to cut just that little bit too much, and you might be just that little bit over the line, and it'll really cost you in those track limits. Don't want to pick up anything in this 20-minute race, as any sort of drive-through penalty will be very costly. Here we see the battle. Go ahead.
Yeah, Porkchop not satisfied with one move, looking at another. Now equal machinery here, less damage on Morgan's car. Porkchop's going to be quite eager to take that position, but is going to have to be careful. You know, too eager, and then you might get yourself into an incident. And he's going to have to yell at himself, being the manager of this league.
Yeah, you certainly don't want to cause any incidents being the manager of the league. But as you mentioned earlier, yeah, just being a rookie series, it might just be good to just kind of wait your moment and see if there's any sort of mistake that happens ahead. Just dipping a wheel into the gravel, we've seen it a couple of times here on this straight. Just dipping just even one wheel into the gravel will really cost you speed down any of these tiny straights. And any sort of overlap will really give any driver a kind of a look into the heavy braking zones that follow into the chicanes. Not quite close enough here for Porkchop, though. Oh, and as we mentioned here, yeah, Tyler Morgan making just that tiny little bobble of a mistake and unfortunately facing the incorrect direction, but able to regain control and is now going back in the right way. Going to try to recover as best as he can in the last 3.5 minutes left in the race.
And that's, we literally just mentioned it. Just wait. Just be patient. Just apply some pressure, right? Oftentimes, in this level of racing, when you get into their mirrors, right, give them a little wiggle, little left, little right. It's like, hey, think about me. I might be doing something back here. Just takes their attention off the braking point, takes their attention off to the turning point. And Zolder is one of those tracks where if you miss the chicane by the slightest margins, you're going to be turned around. And that's exactly what happened to Tyler Morgan, down to 11th place, unfortunately for Tyler, fighting for P6 earlier in the race. I'm sure Tyler's going to learn from the mistakes on this race and carry it into the next one.
Yeah, as you mentioned, really difficult to follow your own racing line and your own race with someone really close in your mirrors behind. It really just even that slight little hesitation could really send you the wrong way into any of these kind of really heavy curbing around Zolder too. Frederick Velez in the 787 Aston looking to gain a place on Morgan, who just recently made that mistake. Unfortunately, Velez here dipping a wheel into that gravel. That's not going to help him down one of the very few straights around Zolder. Might even give an opportunity to Sullivan behind to close the gap in the BMW. Here Velez negotiating the curbs around that chicane pretty well, able to maintain the gap ahead and behind. That is another thing that is very difficult to do, is being in the middle of a battle where you have to look ahead and behind at the same time. Velez there getting a massive advantage through cutting the curbing just that tiny bit. Like we said, if you really know your way around the curbs here and the track limits, you can really gain a lot of time, almost like half a second through a few of the chicanes. Bumper to bumper stuff into the heavy braking zone, almost pushing the Aston in front wide. The 787 still behind of Morgan. Morgan able to maintain 11th place for now as we approach the last minute and a half of the race. Just a few laps to go now for these drivers. Oh my goodness, Velez trying to go really heavy, trying to almost dive bomb around the outside of the final chicane, not able to get the move done. Now has to keep an eye out behind. Doesn't want to give that position to the BMW either.
That's a huge send by Velez, but that mistake allows Shane to catch up to this little pack. And while this pack's interesting, we have another tight pack of 4 or 5 drivers right behind, starting from Porkchop, being pressured by Bud, being pressured by Maverick, being pressured by Sugg, and by Dooku behind. We are almost 20 minutes into the race, and these guys are still fighting for huge numbers of position. A single mistake could yield multiple positions yet, and these folks are fighting for it hard. It looks like we have people going side by side. Looks like Morgan made another mistake, and that's Velez and Sullivan through. Morgan just falling down the ranks here, unfortunately. Georgeson now looking at Morgan. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe miscalculated tire pressures, really losing out towards the end of these 20 minutes. But Morgan taking quite the opportunistic route there through the chicane, as we've seen some take here before. And we're on the final lap by the leaders, and these folks are still fighting for every single position that they can get. I'm not quite sure which one to turn to. We have battles up front. We have, so as we said and go now, only half a second to P1. Fighting for that top spot, we have P7 in contention between Porkchop and Maverick. We have P8 in contention between Maverick, Sugg, and Dooku. We have Morgan down into P12. Wiggles, up, down. The timing charts are confused. Don't know which way to go. Let's look at this. There looks like they're side by side now between Georgeson and Morgan. Is Morgan going to be able to maintain a cool head and manage to go through the next couple of corners, maintaining that P12 position? Is Shane going to make a mistake, seemingly a little bit up front there? Morgan trying to look for an opportunity, not quite there. Oh, Shane goes wide. Morgan through up into P11. That is a position gain, something that is music to Morgan's ears as he looks further ahead in the last lap of the race. These folks still going really hard to try and get every single position that they can until the last and final corners. Oh my goodness, Sugg sending it in on Maverick, goes through, misses the other 2 corners. Looks like Maverick is able to be patient, let Sugg make the mistake, Maverick up into P8, I think where he was before, but maintains that top spot. Mariko Yatanashi, P1, go P2, Doyle, P3. These three got very close towards the end there, but the battle is here. Oh my goodness. Sugg makes the mistake on Maverick. I think Slow was slowing down to let him by. Yeah, Sugg is slowing down to let Maverick by. Good sportsmanship there. But my goodness, these battles have been absolutely crazy. Dooku winning out on those mistakes, up into P8 and goes on to the final straight. But there are still battles happening between Georgeson and Shane Sullivan. A bit of a bump and run, not quite there. And I don't think the speed of the Mercedes is going to be quite enough. Morgan managing to keep that P11 position. Georgeson in P13. Goodness, and Shane in P12. Wow, that was crazy. So many battles, Kuja.
Yeah, crazy to think that we have another 20-minute race ahead of us, hopefully yielding the exact same kind of action. Yeah, that was a crazy race to watch. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed it. We got a whole other 20 minutes coming up ahead. Joan Perez here crossing the line in 14th, behind Lily Chambers in 15th. John in 16th in the Mercedes number 24. Velez, unfortunately, at the end there, picked up a drive-through penalty, most likely for track limits. We saw him kind of flirting with the edge there as he had a really good overspeed on one of his overtakes, but unfortunately just over the limit, picking up that drive-through, costing him a few positions, dropping him into 17th place. Moreira finishes in 18th, and he is the last of the finishers. The last two finished in the pit lane.
I'm so glad you're here, because even though I've only been talking half the time, I'm tired already. So
yeah.
Thank you for joining. That was so much action. I really legitimately didn't know which battle to turn to. And while we talk about battles, I do want to go in and check out the standings. So, all right. So we do have a drop round here in the rookie series. And one person is quite firmly leading the championship, although what happened to Diaz? So Diaz is winning the championship with 248 points, but dropped out of the race. We didn't talk about him at all.
At the beginning, before they went on the formation lap, I believe he qualified in P1, but it looked like he may have been disconnected or just had some sort of issue with the game, and it looks like he was able to rejoin, but I think the game just dropped him back to the back of the grid, and then after that he just kind of went to the pits and sat there. But hopefully he'll be back for race 2 and be able to show the pace that he has.
So while we're going through the standings here, Mitch in chat saying that was so much fun. Toggle TC2. Ooh, see the little mistakes that you make. I mean, I've done it before. Unfortunately, on my Fanatic wheel, the dials, the rotator dials, are just a little too soft, and sometimes you knock your hand, lose that TC, and boy, that one corner just gets you, and then you go, oh, I wonder what happened there. I took it the same way I did the last 10 times. Nope, your TC is completely different level, so you're gonna be dead. With that being said, wow, 248 points for Diaz, but that's another drop round for him. The next set of drivers, though, oh my goodness. Maverick, Ngo, Luke Nelson, Yatanashi, 208, 207, 202, 200 respectively, fighting for that P2 spot. That's going to be an incredible battle moving forward. And you know what's nuts? We already have 3 people who are in the intermediate class have upgraded their SimGrid rating and will be graduating after this series, which you'll love to see, Kuja.
Yeah, good to see that, especially rising the ranks so quickly. Like you mentioned, Maverick, really new to the game, already at such a high level in SimGrid. Very impressive stuff from him. Just a quick mention, yeah, Moriko Yatanashi with that win might really pick up a lot of places on Diaz Herald up at the top with him not finishing. So yeah, like we mentioned earlier, this championship is really close up at the top, and it really could be anybody's at the end of the season.
Yeah,
30 seconds.
Unreal. And I expect that we're going to have another immense battle here with the second race of the night. We are back on to the grid, same positions as before. So what we do in this championship, in order to allow time for the open series to run on schedule, I should say, we run one qualifying, and both races are based off that qualifying. Now that's going to be something that Doyle's super happy about, but not so much so for Will, as he drops back down into the P3 position.
Yeah, they had a fantastic battle in the last race. Hopefully they can continue that going. Unfortunately, it ended with the Porsche going on 2 wheels over a curve, providing a lot of entertainment for us here in the studio, but probably not so much fun for the driver hopping up on those 2 wheels, but being able to regain control of the car, and ultimately towards the end of the race able to close down the gap on the top 2. So Doyle really did show some impressive pace towards the end of the 20 minutes. We'll see if he can apply some pressure on Yatanashi and potentially even go for the win here.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I think if it wasn't for the contact, it would have been an even closer ending to the last race for that P1 position. Like you said, Doyle closed down incredibly. I think Doyle was what, 3-4 seconds behind when we last looked, and then in the last lap it was only a half a second between Yatanashi and Doyle, which is incredible to see.
Yeah, if I remember right, I remember at one point seeing the gap being upwards of like 5-6 seconds even, so really good pace from Doyle towards the end. So yeah, as we mentioned, just closing down the gap on the front 3. We'll see if Ngo could potentially even jump a few positions at the start, as we saw him do at the last race. And yeah, that battle between Yatanashi and Doyle into turn 1 really cost Doyle a few positions. We'll see how they negotiate it this time around with another 20 minutes ahead of us.
Yeah, and wow, I just thinking back on that race again, just so many battles. It's incredible. And like you said, there were the 10 middle spots all fighting for position on the same. Whoa, what is happening there? One of the Mercedes looks like it's just stopped on track for some reason. Not
yeah,
sure.
Just really getting its brakes warm. Coming to a dead stop, really warming the brakes up. But yeah, it seems like everybody's back and rolling. Maybe just got out of position in the formation lap and just wanted to just brake really heavily to get back into position as the drivers are about to line up and go too wide.
What's interesting is I was noticing earlier, so there are a couple of Mercedes, a couple of Porsches, only one Ginetta, one Camaro, but wow, are there a lot of Astons in this league here today.
Yeah, seemingly a popular choice of GT4 car at the moment. Yeah, good action among all the manufacturers. We see a very big spread of manufacturers in that top 10, all the way from Aston to Ginetta to BMW, McLarens. Yeah, good mix of cars, good mix of drivers, good mix of manufacturers. We'll see what the next 20 minutes ahead brings us.
And here we are rounding the final single, not multiple corner of the chicane here at Zolder in Belgium, lined side by side, getting into position and getting ready to go. Adrenaline going from the previous race on all high, going green. It looks like Ngo gets a fantastic start. So does Doyle. Yatanashi being swamped by these drivers. Yatanashi sends it, and going over under. Manages to put side by side, and Doyle up ahead now. And Ngo does have a car ahead, a nose ahead at the very least, but goes wide. Yatanashi managing to regain that position for P2 as the cars behind wrangle their cars, trying to maintain the track position. Nairati does maintain P4. Unfortunately for Ngo, despite a heroic attempt at a move, does not manage to make it stick. Now being swamped from behind by Nairati, and I think that is Estevez in the Aston. Estevez, we saw some over-eagerness, let's say, which could be also said as aggression, as Nairati looks on the inside trying to make a move on Will. Will, unfortunately, not coming to grips with the Ginetta. Oh no, we get a huge send from behind. Unfortunately for both Ngo and Nairati, that's going to be some contact and some damage. Now that was a huge hit on the back of Will. Will's gonna have to deal with that for quite some time with 20 minutes left in the race. But up front, Doyle, fantastic start, perfect start for race 2, and is gonna try to drive off into the sunset at 5:07 p.m. here at Zolder.
Yeah, really good start from Doyle in the Porsche, able to make that move stick through the inside of turn 1. Yatanashi unfortunately just got caught out on the start, seemingly not quite far enough in position and not quite getting the getaway he wanted to get. Almost gave the position up to Ngo, who almost had a look down the inside, had a really good over-under attempt, but not quite able to pull it off, as he also went a little bit wide in the exit. Good start from Nairati and Estevez as well. Dooku behind in the McLaren we saw with a pretty big send, unfortunately just misjudging his braking zone, I believe, sending it into the back of Stug, or sorry, not Stug, sending it into the back of Ngo, who went into Nairati as they were battling for position. No positions lost, nobody spun around, so I think those drivers should be good to go and battle on for the rest of the race.
Yeah, fantastic start. Such an entertaining start for us to watch. Wow. Again, this is shaping up to be another fantastic race as Sug and Velez go side by side, and the camera not doing us any favors. Looks like a bit of a track up, but Velez manages to make it through. And Sug now being swarmed by Morgan. Hopefully Morgan has found his bearings and fine-tuned his arms and legs to be a little bit better performing in the second race here. Now Sug unfortunately might have gone down in the ranks. I'm not quite sure where Sug started, but Colin here trying to maintain this position at P8. A pretty similar position to where he was in the last race, getting into some shenanigans towards the end as they were battling with themselves and Dooku and I believe Maverick.
Yeah, the cars, as they come around of the few laps they've already done, seemingly a lot cleaner. Colin Sugg going a little bit deep in the final chicane. Morgan's going to be able to sweep through and take that position from Sugg. Hopefully not going to give up too many more positions behind. Oh, the Aston of Herald making up places from the start. Started in last place, up into 9th. Really good start from Herald in the first 4 minutes of the race. Tyler Morgan going a little bit wide as we have 3 Astons going together. Oh, and the first of the 3, going wide. It doesn't look like there was any contact though. Unfortunately for Herald, able to avoid the spinning Velez ahead. Let's take a look here.
Oh, that's a scary one. Oh, and he's blinded by it slightly too. Oh, wow, incredible hands and control, managing to avoid contact there. What are we doing here, camera? Where are we going? Goodness.
All right, yeah, we're back to the action here. Yeah, very good reaction from Herald. Unfortunately, losing the position to Sugg, but he is still in the race, and that is really what matters in racing. Yeah, able to just avoid that incident. Yeah, like you mentioned, he was blinded by the fellow Aston in front. The Aston in front, I believe that was of Morgan, able to avoid the incident, but now seemingly dropped back into 9th, battling behind with Sullivan in the BMW, able to stay on the inside. Herald, though, applying the pressure. Oh, we see 2 cars off in the background there, unfortunately for those 2, and another one of Georgeson in the Mercedes. Let's take a look and see what happened here. Yeah, approaching the hairpin, just going a little bit wide. Oh, just all on his own, not able to stop the car, running a little bit wide, but pointing the car in the correct direction, not spinning it around. Good for Georgeson, still in 11th place, 3 seconds back, and still plenty of race to go and make up positions.
Battles all over the field again in this race as we see Morera trying to challenge Morgan. Morgan up into P10, one better than where he finished last race, and I'm sure going to be wanting to look ahead at Sullivan, who also was in quite a few battles in the last race. Now, Morera challenging Morgan here. I'm not sure how well suited the Camaro is to Zolder, but looking quite menacing in the background there. And what seems to be, I would guess, Brazilian colors with the green, blue, and yellow.
Yeah, we saw the Brazilian flag next to his name on the bottom right. So yeah, I think you're correct there in that based his livery off of the Brazilian flag. Good to see very international representation in the GT4 Open Series here. Drivers from the US, Canada, Brazil. Yeah, well, very fun to race with people all around the world. Vladislav from Ukraine.
Yeah, and Diaz now Again, we know he's got the pace. He's usually up into the P1-ish, 2-ish positions, but for some reason, whether it's disconnects or penalties, Diaz now in P8, still looking ahead. And if it wasn't clear enough, is Dominican racing from the Dominican Republic. And that might be the source of where we get some disconnects with Diaz and our servers.
Yeah, it's very possible with a lot of international internet being just straight up the long distance of it. Really, it's nothing more than that. Like the internet, you could have as good of an internet as you want, but trying to connect to servers internationally really does throw off your ping and potentially, yeah, just any sort of random disconnect you may have, and you're out of the server and unfortunately dropping back to last. But good recovery from Harald nonetheless, up into 8th place, starting after starting in last on the grid. Really good aggressive move so far, and right on the back of Stug, almost pushing the Porsche through the chicane. Aston really taking the curbs really well, landing almost flat and just having a really good drive out of the chicane into the corner as they approach turn 7. We'll see if Harald is close enough, but not quite. Stug able to get really good on the brakes in that Porsche and keeps his 7th place.
And hello to Muff, welcome. Hope you're doing well. And you too, Hezzy. How are you all doing? We are in the second race of the night, the second doubleheader for the Rookie Series. 8 minutes in to this 20-minute race with 12 minutes remaining, and it's going to be followed by yet another championship, another GT4 championship in the Open Series, which we'll pop into right around 9:30. Now, for those of you who don't know, Diaz, incredibly fast driver. Harald has been in that P1 position, dominated races, but for some reason had to start all the way in the back and is now trying to figure out knocking down one driver at a time up into P8, looking at P7. But again, you know, it's just one of those things where Harald is incredibly quick, but it's just like those, you know, teenage basketball players where they are skilled, but their arms and legs are just growing a little bit too fast, and they don't know their orientation just yet. They haven't kind of found their body yet. That's what Diaz reminds me of. That he's so fast, but just makes these little mistakes that are generally avoidable.
Yeah, we saw him go into the back of the Porsche at the second corner into the braking zone, gets the position, but good sportsmanship from Harald to let the Porsche back through again, knowing that he didn't quite make that move cleanly, and he's just gonna sit back and try to make that move again. Still 10 minutes of racing left for Harald. Unfortunately, these two have a bit of a gap up to P6. Looks like Yatanashi has dropped, just looking at the timing table, he dropped to P6. Doyle in the lead, Estevez in second, Nairati moving up to third in the BMW. Wonder what happened there with Yatanashi. Seemed to be in a good position up into second, but now back to sixth. Gonna try to make up those places. Good battle here for second, third, and fourth between Estevez, Nairati, and Go. Go started out in third place, dropping back to down to fourth place. Just hanging on the tail of these two drivers ahead. Not quite close enough seemingly to make a move yet. Go ahead.
Yeah, with how things are looking, I would suspect that I think it's too far back for us to be able to go back and find the contact between Yatanashi, or what a presumed contact, I should say, with what happened to Yatanashi. But I want to say that considering Estevez and Nairati are in P2 and P3, that there must have been contact between Ngo and Yatanashi. But having said that, Nairati is running with the fastest lap of the race with a 37.1, which is at least a tenth faster than the next fastest person, who just so happens to be Estevez just up ahead.
Yeah, good battle between these two. Estevez making a little bit of a mistake into the second part of that chicane, but not quite giving an opportunity to the BMW to pull up alongside to shape up for any kind of opportunity. We'll see if he tries to dive into the inside of the chicane, into the hairpin, but not quite close enough for that. In the meantime, this gives the Janetta behind of Go a good opportunity to catch up to these two and try to pull off any sort of move in the closing stages of the race. Not quite close enough here. The BMW is in a really tricky position. Like we mentioned earlier, it is hard to be in the middle of a battle. You have to look ahead and hope the car ahead is racing cleanly and not making any mistakes, because you don't want to collect them, and at the same time you got to look behind and see if the driver behind isn't trying to pull off any sort of aggressive moves.
And Nairati giving a bit of a move on the right behind to make Estevez look behind. Think about it, Estevez tight on the line here in whatever third corner this is, and there's a bit of a mistake by Nairati. They're hanging too far outside, trying to maximize as much speed as he could, but it was just a bit too much for those front tires to maintain grip, and that is a position. And we got confirmation in chat from a teammate, Nakaru, confirming that there was contact in the first chicane. Side by side, just no room.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to happen in...
Yeah, sorry, has he just saying that the M4 F80 GT4, one of favorite cars for our viewers out there.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, yeah, the GT4s are a really fun class of car to drive around Zolder, around any kind of one of these like tighter, smaller tracks. They just seem to really come alive in these like really narrow tracks, as we see Tyler Morgan moving up into 9th place, getting a good move done on Dooku in the McLaren. Now, unfortunately, from behind, going to open the door a little bit for Porkchop, dipping a wheel into the grass, and that's going to cost him the speed and give the position to Porkchop in the Aston Martin. Now going to try to chase down his fellow Aston of Morgan, the 72 and the 71 running alongside each other in 9th and 10th. Dooku here in 11th place, followed closely by Moreira in the lone Camaro of the grid.
Again, incredible racing here for the second race of the season, and we have a raid from Mario DK07. Welcome, Raiders. Hope everybody is doing well. Hope you had a fantastic stream. How is it going? How was your stream? How is everybody doing? We are in the second race of the night, the double header in the Rookie Series, 2 20-minute races with 6 minutes remaining. But don't fret, it is not over in 6 minutes, as we are going to jump into the next championship of the season, which is the GT4 Open Series, which quite a few of our drivers from the Rookie Series are going to hop into.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see how they compete in the Open Series, just where they end up. Yeah, just another race around Zolder. But yeah, focusing on this race now, we got Porkchop trying to get a position on Morgan. Morgan running wide at the chicane. These two Astons running alongside each other for almost the whole race. Morgan able to maintain his position on track after making that little bit of a mistake on the exit. These two are almost inseparable. You can't even put a piece of paper between them, how close they're running.
Oh, that is so close. So close. I don't think you'd be able to sneeze in between those two cars. Wow, and looks like Porkchop does make the move stick. Interestingly enough, these two guys are probably within a stone's throw of each other in real life. They're both greater Toronto area folks. I think they probably live less than an hour away from each other. Incredible racing from the two. So if there's any discontent, they can go deal with it in person. Take it in real life. But yeah, no, this is fantastic. Now Dooku battling Morgan up a position from the last race, having finished 11th, trying to maintain that P10. I know he's going to be eager to do so, but Dooku super hungry for that position. We saw Dooku make a mistake earlier, causing some contact for the drivers ahead, but this time around trying to be smarter, a little bit more patient. And as we've said multiple times through the last two races, patience is a virtue. Just pressure, and quite often, being in a rookie series, the driver in front will make a mistake, as we have seen happen quite a few times already in the last two races.
Yeah, we sure have. Yeah, just applying the pressure, getting big in the mirrors of the car in front really makes the car ahead think of what the car behind is potentially going to do, even if it might not really do anything at all. So yeah, just yeah, even making the car ahead even think about what you might do might cause any sort of small mistake. Dooku here not quite close enough to Morgan on this lap to pull off any sort of moves of his own. We'll have to wait and see if potentially Morgan might open up a small opportunity for Dooku as he makes a little bit of a wiggle exiting the tight hairpin of turn 8. Just a little over 3 minutes left in the race, so not too much time left for the drivers to pick off any last spots they could on the grid. Doyle still in command, 4 seconds up from Estevez. Still up in that lead position. Dooku here applying the pressure as best as he can, still not quite close enough though to make any sort of moves happen.
Yeah, these guys, again, so many battles happening. It's nice to see that it is maintaining through the race, and we said that at the start, right? We've seen the timetables, we've seen the practice laps from everybody. We knew the numbers were going to be close. We knew the numbers were close in practice, and we knew there was going to be pretty tight racing. And boy, have they delivered! Fantastic job by all of the drivers here, and Dooku continuing to hunt down Morgan. Is Morgan going to be able to keep the concentration, and does so? Dooku being the one making a mistake, giving Morgan some breathing room for the last couple of laps here. Raiders from Mario's channel. Mario had a very hot race in Laguna Seca on the Bentley. That is fantastic to hear. Always love seeing the Bentley run. Not necessarily one of the most OP cars unless it is in the hands of Gabriel Felipe, who is just an unbelievable driver, and I've seen him make that Bentley do some things that it shouldn't be physically possible nor virtually possible to do, but he manages to do so. A very hot race. Okay, so how did it end up? How did Mario do? Did you guys enjoy the night of racing? And where are you guys based out of? So with that being asked, looking back on the charts, looks like Doyle does have a commanding lead here, but that is just a blue flag. I thought there was going to be another race or battle happening back there, but no, just blue flags letting some of the leaders by here. Estevez ahead and go not too far behind, only a second, so is going to want to make through this this back marker Mercedes, and being very generous and letting him through. Oh no, the back marker. Oh, that made me nervous.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was almost a race-ending crash for the Ginetta. That was very good driving from the Mercedes to unfortunately started the mistake, but able to recover well and not ruin the race of one of the potential podium finishers in Will Go here. Just staying as close as he possibly can to the Aston ahead of Estevez. BMW behind 4 seconds. Should be able to maintain that gap as the leaders come up to the line. They should have enough time to cross the line and do one more lap, which is good for Will here to potentially have another opportunity to get another position and move up into second place.
And final lap started by Doyle here. Harald now getting that fastest lap up into P6 for him. That is incredible, all the way down from P19. Unfortunately, Roman getting a stop-go 30 there, only being followed by Aaron John, who we just saw thankfully do the smart thing and not cause a problem for Will and Go. Still chasing down Estevez into the gravel a little bit. That's not going to slow you down too much, but only 0.8 seconds between the two, as Doyle does commandingly lead with 3.5 seconds behind. Pretty comfortable race for Austin here. Couple more corners to go, and he's going to want to have it be as error-free, as calm as possible, taking it easy, leaving some margins on the table. We don't need any silly mistakes towards the end of the race here. Just gonna finish it. Just send it home.
Yeah, while Doyle is doing that, the battle behind them is doing rather the opposite. These two getting very close together for the second spot on the podium. The Ginetta trying everything it can to get through the Aston Martin. pushing the bumper of the Aston. Into the final corner they go. The Ginetta is going to try to look down the outside. Is he going to have the drive out of the final corner to get up to the line and overtake the Aston? No, just a bit of a wiggle is going to cost him that opportunity. And unfortunately for Ngo, he's going to finish in third place behind Estevez in second. But as you mentioned, great race from Doyle in front, able to maintain first from the first corner of the race. Looking just a little bit behind here, the battle for 12th and 11th between Dooku and Moreira. Moreira in the lone Camaro, rising up the grid, getting through a bunch of cars up into 11th place. Good race from the Brazilian driver. Dooku and Maverick behind, negotiating the final corners as they come up to the checkered flag to take 12th and 13th respectively. Good race from the entire grid up and down the field for the 20 minutes we saw on track.
And it's not done yet. Lily Chambers within a second of Georgeson behind. Lily trying to attack the Mercedes here in the wee bitty Porsche. Is she going to have enough to make the move stick? Oh no, the same wiggle that Will had. Just over ambitious on the... Oh my goodness, Georgeson nearly gave that away. I'm not sure what happened there, but that was not a lot less comfortable than I think should have been, with Lily so close behind. Georgeson really nearly gave those away.
Yeah, getting excited just a split second too early, almost giving up that position as Lily finishes 0.15 seconds back. Yeah, so any earlier of a celebration from Georgeson would have cost him 14th place.
Yeah, but ooh, that was a bit nerve-wracking because I thought he for sure gave it away. He went into the wall. I don't know. That was no comment. I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it at no comment. Well, fantastic doubleheader by the rookies here. Wow, incredible racing. Back into the studio, and we can recap a little bit on what happened. And for those of you who were in the P1, 2, or 3 position in the previous 2 races, so I think we had Doyle, we had Mariko. Mariko, if you want to hop into the green room, we had Will and Estevez. I think that's the 6 who were in P1, 2, 3 in both races. Hop into the green room. Let's have a chat. Let's see how you're doing, how your races went while we wait for the Open Series to start for us. Kuja, I'm so glad you're here today because I don't know if I would have had the energy to do all that by myself and continue going into the Open Series. So welcome to the studio, everybody. We are here joined by Kuja Terakov, the lovely commentator, the newest addition to the Trackalicious streaming team. Kuja, how was tonight so far?
Yeah, really exciting action so far from the GT4s, the rookies in particular. Yeah, we saw really good action in the first race. Really good up and down the field, all the way from first to last. Everybody battling out for every position. A little bit more mellow in the second race in terms of how many cars battling at the same time, but still really good battles all up and down the field. Doyle with a good race in the second race, able to take the lead into turn 1 and not look back, able to keep that Porsche on all 4 wheels throughout the entire race. Unlike race 1, we saw him hop up on that curb and get that Porsche on 2 wheels, performing a really cool skill move there, but not quite the fastest line through that corner, but providing some good entertainment for us here.
That was incredible racing, and I'm really hoping some of these drivers do join us into the green room. I'm going to post something here for them to be a little bit more motivated. Mariko, I see you in chat there. Join us, and let's have a conversation.
Yeah, just reading the chat, it looks like Moriko was also on 2 wheels at some point, so he knows the feeling that Doyle felt that we saw that moment happen around turn 2. So yeah, most likely unfortunate for what happened, but still a top 5 finish.
We have a couple of drivers who are joining us. Let's get started with Austin Doyle. Austin, fantastic start to race 2. Not the same for race 1. How were the starts defined? How did they define your 2 races?
I think the first off, great race to everybody. Especially that first race. That was a absolute thriller to the end. But at the starts, I just getting through turn one clean and just seemed to be the best thing. Race two, I obviously pulled off the move and just didn't look back from there. Uh, uh, I have no words other than that.
Well, in the second race, though, I mean, that was just, it was unreal. Like, your performance was great. It just didn't seem like you quite had the pace to do that in race one. What did you figure out in race two that allowed you to just walk away like that?
I think once I got ahead, I kind of made sure that I just kept looking forward. I tried to not look in my rearview mirror, not to see any of the cars behind me, but just focus on what's in front of me.
That's fantastic. Congratulations. 2 podium positions, a P3
Thank you.
and a P1 for race two. Great performance tonight. Thank you for joining us, Austin. I'm going to drop you down to
Thank
another
you for
channel
having me.
and grab somebody else. Will, welcome to the stream room. How are you doing tonight? You might be muted, Will. We are not hearing you. All right, we'll let Will hang out in here and see if Will can figure out. But we have Mariko Yatanashi here with us. Mariko, P1 in the first race, not so fortunate in the second race. Tell us how that first race was for you while we kind of gear ourselves up for the unfortunate ending of race two.
Well, I want to say for the first race, it was absolutely wonderful. Turn one, I did accidentally push someone a little too wide and sent them into the sand a little bit, and I feel bad for that person. I don't think I really messed them up too terrible. I think they still ended up pretty high. But after that, I had the Janetta behind me. It got sketchy a few points. I thought they were going to pass me, but I was able to hold them back just enough just to get through the rest of the race.
And tell us what happened towards the end of the second race. It seemed like you were we were following you for quite some time. You had that P2 position, I think, and then all of a sudden we look up and you're in P6.
Well, I think the gist of what was the cause of everything was the Porsche jumped me at the start there. Because what I usually do to help keep my brakes warm is I go pretty high throttle and I hold down on the brakes and I hold my speed where it's supposed to be. I was overspeeding right before the green light and I slammed on the brakes and they jumped me right there and that's how they got ahead. However, I think really what my main problem was I was trying to catch up to them the entire time. And I just kept making silly mistakes I wasn't making in the first race that was able to keep me a pretty good pace. And I just ended up making mistakes and mistakes. And then once we got into the first chicane, about halfway through the race, stuck my nose where I shouldn't have, and I spun out someone in the chicane and ended up dropping in sixth.
That's unfortunate. Well, still, Mariko fighting for the championship. Still a great number of points today. Great job overall. Some mistakes happen. I know we're all trying to learn and progress through the ACC rankings, but fantastic job today, and congratulations on your one podium that you got today.
Thank you, Eric.
All right, Will, we're going to give it one more shot. Are you with us, Will?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Welcome, Will.
Nice.
Welcome. So, Will, you had some intense racing last week with a P2 and a P1. And by golly, you followed that up this week again. Immense battles all the way through the race. Tell us about your first race.
First race was a little hectic. I don't know. I couldn't really find much pace past Yetanashi. I just didn't have pace and just made a couple mistakes. I couldn't pass him, but I just tried to just keep it constant.
And is that anything learned in race one that led you to your progression in race two? Unfortunately, it was a position drop, but 2 podium positions, a great outcome for the championship for you.
Yeah, at the beginning of race 2, I tried to push a little like ahead just to get the lap 1 like pass for a couple cars, but I didn't stick it too well there and sort of waited for mistakes to the rest of the race.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. You did a great over-under, but unfortunately, just understeer out of Kanalbocht in turn 3. The front end just didn't stick for you. Ended up losing those positions. But hey, again, overall, 2 podium positions is a great bucket of points for you this week.
Thank you very much. Great racing.
Congratulations. All right, Will, thank you so much. We're going to get ourselves geared up for the next race to come, which is the Open Series. Hopefully, we'll see you back again, Will. Closing remarks. Thanks to anybody out there.
Thanks to the guys to keep it clean. It was a great race this week.
All righty. Thank you, Will. I'm going to drop you down to the other channels here. And there we have it, Kuja. Everybody being pretty PR prepped, wouldn't you say?
Oh, 100%. These are professionals you got here.
No, it's lovely.
These might be the rookies, but yeah, these might be the rookies, but they know how to handle an interview.
No, fantastic job by all of our drivers. It's awesome. Again, so fun to see everybody being so respectful towards each other. You know, part of the real fun is, the racing is great, but the friends we make along the way is also fantastic.
Yeah, it's good to hear all the sportsmanship too, people like owning up to all the mistakes they make and not really particularly blaming one thing or another, just being like, oh, yep, just made a mistake, happens, on to the next one we go.
Absolutely. And yeah, exactly. Why is it so hard? I don't understand. There's some situations that I've gotten into over the past couple of seasons where it's like I've gotten taken out, and just like anybody else, I get super frustrated. And some people apologize. I'm like, oh, damn, I really want to be mad at you, but I can't because I appreciate the apology. Whereas others just simply do not make the effort to apologize, and it drives me nuts.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, as soon as people show that human side and apologize and own up to their mistakes, all you can do is show your own human side and just be like, yep, stuff happens. Move on to the next one.
Yeah, and it goes for me too. You know, I'm no saint.
Oh, 100%, same here.
Gotten into many a contact. I mean, first Pro Series first race, I was the one with the most penalties out of anybody, and that wasn't necessarily something I'm proud of, but it happened, you know. So I just apologized to everybody, reported myself, and it seems like we're all on good terms again. But gosh, those who don't apologize grinds my gears.
Yeah, especially when you can't even try to have like any kind of discussion about it with them either, so where they're just like, your fault. Sorry, see ya. It's good to have that like kind of interaction, seeing people's perspectives, being like, oh, well, maybe, like what happened from your perspective kind of thing. It's like, oh, well, I maybe saw a little gap that you opened up, but then that makes you learn for next time that, oh, I didn't even know that I opened up a gap, and that just helps everybody learn along the way and get everybody to become a better racer.
Yeah. And Harald Diaz in chat, man, I was in pole position and got kicked out of the server again. That's so unfortunate. Harald, I don't think I've ever had anyone get kicked out of the server as much as you have. I don't know whether it's a connection on our end, and what I'll do is I'll put some effort into trying to review the server stats and see if we see anything there, or if it's on your end. But that's unfortunate, man. That really sucks, and you did a fantastic job in the second race, coming back up into what, P5 or P6. Really, really great work.
Yeah, despite the issues, her all very good recovery race in that second race in particular. Yeah, just very good managing all the drivers ahead and picking up positions where you can, keeping it clean, keeping it safe. That's what that's what gets you up the grid and up into sixth.
Harald coming in with an immense buckets of confidence, saying that would have been 2 more wins for him. You know, technical difficulties are a real part of racing, and that's kind of how I like to imagine it. Cars break all the time. They break down, they break up, they break left, they break right. It does happen, and fortunately for you, these issues are costing you all of $0, whereas in racing, contacts issues cost thousands, if not tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that's my eternal optimism, I guess, in trying to look at the bright side and say, yeah, it's unfortunate, and crap happens, but fortunately for us, we pay very little money to come back and continue racing.
Yeah, like you said earlier, it's not, racing itself is a pretty expensive sport, but being able to do it virtually really helps the cost value in that. And yeah, just being able to come back day after day, week after week, just being able to do it all over again and enjoy the racing that you do.
Yeah, and with that being said, we have more racing amongst us, as you can hear in the background. So why don't we go ahead and get into the qualifying session for the Open Series here. Now, the format slightly different than in the previous race, right? Not slightly, it's actually quite a bit different. Whereas the last one was 20 minutes, no pit stops, no weather. This race is a 50-minute race with mandatory pit stop, but a minimum 25-second refueling. So that question of should I take tires, should I not take tires, huge, especially with dynamic weather being added. We have rain, ladies and gentlemen, as these folks are out there trying to qualify with 16 minutes left in the session.
Yeah, the rain will certainly add another challenging element to these drivers. Gonna have to keep an eye on the weather radar throughout the 50 minutes to see if that dynamic weather comes into play, potentially might having to switch onto dry tires or go from dry tires to wet tires depending on how the weather plays out. We'll just have to wait and see what the server brings us. At the moment, we have Freeman on top with a 139.460 in the number 14 Aston Martin. Plenty of drivers still yet to set their lap times, and if you could remind me, do they have a split qualifying here?
Yeah, you do. So you do have the pros going out first, and then the rookies will follow later.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that will be the reason that we see a lot of the drivers in the pits still, a few pro drivers as well yet to start their laps. 15 minutes left in the session. Is it split in 10 minutes?
Yes. And
Got
wait a second. Something is fishy here. I see two names in the reds who you would think are the rookies, and I'm pretty sure they are considering the other names that are in the reds. But JP Reed and Ricardo Rivera are not rookie drivers and should not be in the rookie group. Those guys, okay, yeah, that's what I thought. So let's just be clear. While they do have the red tag on their names, they are not in the rookie group, and they are out qualifying. So I think it's just an entry list error. So let's not be fooled. Ricardo Rivera and JP Reed are not by any means rookies. They're probably some of the fastest drivers out there.
Yeah, we can see that clearly at the top there with Reed setting a new fastest lap in the qualifying of a 138.86 tenths clear of the next best. Yeah, you mentioned Ricardo Rivera here in the Alpine, racing in the number 1 car. We'll see what sort of lap times he can set, see if he can get close to that pole position time of a 38.8. Just a few more corners to negotiate here. This little slight kink is technically considered a corner, whereas a few other kinks along the track really aren't. So yeah, hard to really say how many corners there truly are around here. Rounding out the final chicane. We'll just stick with him here and see how far up the grid he can go. Gets a good clean exit out of the final corner in the wet weather, crossing the line into second place, 4 tenths off of pole position.
4 tenths shy for Rivera is like, wow. That's a wow lap from JP Reed, who just so happens to be Australian and just so happens to have been at the Bathurst 12 hour in this last weekend, sending us some phenomenal pictures and live updates from the event. What an immense race. I just loved watching. I don't know if you got a chance to watch any of that, Kuja, but incredible racing at the 12 hour there.
Yeah, that was actually one of the first endurances I was able to watch from start to finish. Just like for the most part of the day. Yeah, just kind of had it on in the background, just tuning in here and there. Yeah, every time I tuned in, there was always some cars battling for position, always action. Yeah, Bathurst never fails to provide that with such tight corners up that mountain, with the walls being almost just a few feet away from the track boundary. So yeah, always unpredictable racing there, and always fun to watch.
We have a couple of yeah, I don't know what it is about Bathurst that makes us love it so much. It's just another racetrack, I guess. Not really. Racetrack with death-defying turns, I guess, is what makes it so special. It's just unbelievable. And I was trying to show my wife especially the pictures that JP got in the sunset. Oh my goodness, so cool, beautiful, absolutely fantastic. If you guys are curious, check out our IRL Motorsports channel and Car Talk channels. That's where JP's posted some of those pictures. Unbelievable. Great photographer too. Great sense of spacing and composition from JP. Unbelievable. As we see JP bettering his 4/10 advantage up to 6/10 ahead of Rivera. Now, again, that's an incredible performance, because Ricardo Rivera, for those of you who don't know, is an SRO Esports silver driver. Is not quite showing, so maybe he is. Maybe that's what esports drivers do. They look for the whatever advantage they can gain, and the Alpine just not having any of those curbs in that particular scenario. But how would you know if you didn't try it, right Kuja?
Yeah, we're not at that level, so maybe he knows something that we don't. As we see in second and third place, they have set an identical lap time, 6:02, off of pole position, but Rivera setting his time first, so he will stay ahead for now. Just gonna have this lap and maybe one more left as he comes up to the final chicane. We'll see if he can improve on his lap time and potentially jump the Audi of Reed in pole position with a commanding 1:38.6 second lap time.
I don't think this lap is valid. No, he's already invalidated this lap from his adventures across the curves. But you know what? I do want to stick with him. Let's see if we can find... let's see what he does here. No pressure, Ricardo Rivera. Nope, no commentators curse there.
Yep, don't know what that is.
Oh goodness. You can't.
Yeah, the commentator's curse always seems to come into play, no matter where or when you do it. But yeah, just always seems to happen as these pro drivers, their qualifying session is over. We see at the top Reed, Rivera, and Umbanesque at the top 3 positions. Pretty close between everybody from second up until 8th and 9th place is second. Less than a second between all of those drivers. So yeah, really competitive, or not competitive, just, well, competitive lap times, yes, and very close lap times between the rest of the field.
Am I wrong in thinking we were in the 37s and 38s with the rookies in the dry?
You know, I can't quite remember. I'm not quite sure what the lap times were, but yeah, they were probably around the 136 mark, 135 mark, if I remember right. But yeah, just the wet adding that little bit of a factor here. Fortunately for Zolder, there aren't too many high-speed sections where the rain really impacts you. Unfortunately, here in the slow-speed sections, impacting the traction that the drivers can have out of that really slow hairpin of turn 8.
So we have the rookies out now with Alejandro Pulgarin in out there. Maverick deciding not to go out for some reason. Then we have Porkchop out, Georgeson out, Yatanashi in chat and driving. Lily Chambers deciding that 2 races was not enough for tonight and she wants a 3rd one. Now, Spady Bud also deciding, you know what, I'm just going to chill in the pits here. I don't need to learn anything about the rain because I am super good and I am the bestest side-by-side driver over multiple corners tonight.
Yeah, we saw some good action from Bud in the 2 previous races going side by side. Yeah, like you mentioned, over multiple corners, providing some great action for us up here. Now Maverick rolling out of the pit lane onto this wet Zolder track we have ahead of us with 7.5 minutes left in qualifying. We'll see how far up the grid he can get, maybe even jump a few of the pro drivers.
It's a possibility. 3 seconds behind for Winchester. Sullivan 2.4 behind JP Reed. And as I said earlier, the likes of JP Reed and Ricardo Rivera are by no means rookie drivers. Those guys are some of the fastest guys we've seen out here at Trackalicious. Incredible pace and speed. And look, that just in the rain brings out this extra dynamic, this extra dimension of complexity. Ain't nothing but a thing for these guys.
Yeah, the pro drivers sure know how to handle it. That is for sure, seeing how quick those lap times are at the front.
But 0.6 of gap to Rivera and Imbanis that's wild. That is incredible. That's a magic lap by JP Reed, and I'm sure he'll admit to that himself. Well, we are watching a couple of the rookies here trying to find some lap times, and Yatanashi already mixing up the field with battering Winchester for 13th position. Only a 10th though, but that's Yatanashi's first lap, and gonna look for some improvements beyond that.
Yeah, it takes a couple of laps to get used to the conditions on the track. The rain is very variable, so not always the same amounts of rain that these drivers could have potentially practiced in. So just getting used to the conditions out there, getting used to the grip levels, tires still getting warmed up and up to pressure, all the car's components, the brakes getting warmed up still. So it does take a few laps to get the tires to that good working temperature, especially around a short track like Zolder.
Yeah, and welcome TGZ Podcast. Thank you for the follow. Hope you're doing well. Are you an ACC streamer, podcaster, viewer? Cali official, thank you so much. Joe, Joe, you said you were gonna be here this week. Where are you? I'm not appreciating your sub, more so I'm getting mad at you for not driving right now. What are you doing, Joe? What is this life that you're living and not racing? Come on, priorities, sir. But yeah, we have a bit of a shakeup on the grid with Yatanashi up into 13th position, Winchester 14th, Porkchop 15, Georgeson 16, with Pulgar and Maverick, Chambers and Bud yet to set a lap. Yatanashi improving on the lap time there, up into 12th position.
Yeah, a few of the rookies here still yet to set their laps. Crossing up to the line now, we're riding with Maverick, seeing how he negotiates this final chicane in the 74 Mercedes that he's got control of. Getting pretty good control out of the exit. Not too many wiggles and wobbles side to side. Getting a good exit. We'll see how good this lap time is as he crosses the line. Moves up into 16th place. 3.8 seconds off of pole, but just a few tenths off of the positions in front of Porkchop and Winchester. Gonna have a few more laps here as there is just under 4 minutes left in the qualifying session. Still has time to improve on his 16th place.
Joe, you know, coming in and giving subs doesn't relieve you of your responsibility of racing, right? Like, you might think like, oh, I'll just show up and give some subs and it'll be all okay and Eric won't get mad, but that's not how it works. You gotta race, man. You gotta be on the grid.
You have to pay us in on-track action.
P1 or bust. P1 or ban. I want to see some sweat. Joe here, Cali official, a fellow streamer, an ACC driver, and also a manager or steward. I think it's a steward. One of the Trackalicious staff members here. has put some incredible races for us in the past to watch, great battles. But no, apparently real life has some more important things for him in the last couple of weeks. So whatever that's all about.
Yeah, sometimes that can catch up to us, and we just don't have time to enjoy all these virtual events we're able to enjoy and love and participate in and stream to all of you guys. And yeah, I hope you guys are having a good time watching what we're putting out here.
Yeah, I mean, oh no. Something happeneth to my ACC, and I don't know if it's happening to everybody.
Yeah, it looks like all the cars were turned back into the pit lane, so yeah, we'll see what goes on there.
Oh, where are you all? Okay, well, let's do this. We might have just gotten Diaz out of the server.
Happens. That can happen to the best of us.
I am gonna take this opportunity. Okay. Reaching out to some tech people.
Green light. Go, go, go.
Yeah, okay. Fortunately, server's not down. We just got kicked out. Yeah, we got Diaz out of the server, unfortunately. But we're back. We get things started again.
Yeah, looks like everybody else was able to stay in the server too, so good luck for all of the drivers here.
Yeah.
Still in the server.
Yeah, I have no shame in admitting we have been facing some technical difficulties. And I don't know. We haven't changed anything. We've had the server running phenomenally well over the past year, and all of a sudden just something has changed. And I'm looking at our tech guys, which is where my attention is here as I bring us back into the race. And everything seems to be normal. We have nothing that shows us any issues that tells us things are out of line. Sorry, folks. It might take us a little while to figure this out, but we will do it. I don't like getting kicked out myself, and I'm sure you guys don't either, and especially Harald, who's fighting for the championship. No, Beachley, they're for sure rookies. You can't. They are rookies. Oh my goodness, you got rain and more rain and more rain over the next 30 minutes. Oh my gosh. That's nuts. Why are you doing this to me? Ugh, sometimes. Well, I'm stuck here. Let's see if I can do this. We're gonna have to do this with a bit of an overlay, unfortunately, because I can't. Yeah, I can't back out and start it again. So we're gonna do this a little uglier than we normally do, but I do want to go through the grid as we have JP Reed in P1 in the Audi here, doing a fantastic job just annihilating the field with that 0.6 advantage. Ricardo Rivera, esports driver, pro as pro gets in P2 in the Alpine. We have Usiban Umbanesk in P3, return of the lovely yellow and purple livery. In P4 we have Alex Freeman, my Bathurst 12-hour partner and teammate. Randy Gross coming in P5 with another fantastic livery. And we have Justin Beachley, who was fighting for a podium position in the last race at Kailami in P6 in 18th place. Alex Hansen getting faster and faster every week in P7. Haas Weaver in P8 in the Charmin Porsche livery. Jason Provolone, the Cheese Man, in P9 with George Elmer in P10. Kuja?
Yeah, here we got Carnotis in the 42 Mercedes in 11th place. Just behind him, the first of the rookie drivers, Yatanashi in the 53 Aston. Just behind him, his competitor in the rookie class, Dr. Porkchop in the 71 Aston. We'll see how those Astons fare up in the top here. Sullivan in the 43 Mercedes in 14th place. Polgarin behind him in another fellow Mercedes of the 44. He is the third of the rookie drivers. Winchester just behind in 16th place in the number 2 Mercedes, as we have a big group of Mercedes, 5 of them in a row here. Behind him, Maverick in the 74 machine. Oh, nice, perfect. Able to get that overlay out of the way here. Georgeson, we saw in the previous race in the 707 Mercedes machine. Just behind them, we've got Lily Chambers in the Porsche, the 144. And last but not least, Spady Bud rounding out the grid in the 224 Mercedes.
Yeah, and the 2025 Mad Fox livery. I do really like that livery. I love the subtle hint of orange. I'm a big orange guy. I'm not wearing much right now, but my watch does have an orange dial on there. Shout out to Trafford Watch Co. out from Austin, Texas. I love this watch. Fantastic. But, and as a lot of you know, there's a huge, just symbiotic relationship between timekeeping and racing. We see a lot of partnerships in history, some legendary partnerships like the Rolex 24-hour and many other sponsorships from many timekeepers like Hublot coming back. Was it Hublot who's back into F1? No.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with the watches. I know that for a while that the Red Bull engine was technically like a Tag Heuer branded engine. So
that's what it is. It's a Tag, because I do have a Tag Formula One from back in the 80s or 90s, I think it was. And yeah, Tag's back in the game, in the Formula One game. So yeah, timekeeping and motorsports huge, and we've been sponsored by a watch company before, actually, and I do want to take this opportunity to show it, actually, because it's so cool. Yeah, while we go around the grid here, yeah, we were sponsored by AWI International. So it's an Armenian watch company, and they did something super cool. So for our Road to SRO challenge, this is one that I'd actually bought prior to being in conversations with them for sponsorship, but they gifted our winning team 2 AWI watches, and man, they're so cool. They also were sponsors for the Armenian team for the Valencia FIA Motorsports game. So Andy Borchers and Ali Raza, who won that championship, got super limited edition watches. They had their names engraved in it. Winners of the SRO X Trackalicious Road to the Community Challenge, and yeah, it's just super cool partnership and amazing watch company with AWI International.
Yeah, good to hear as these drivers come up to the line to a wet Zolder track. 50-minute race lies ahead. James Pierre Reed in P1 from Ricardo Rivera behind. The green light goes, and it's a really clean getaway from Reed in the Audi, able to maintain P1 back behind 3 wide going into turn 1, able to keep it clean. Reed having a really good jump from the start, has a good gap here. Alex Hansen alongside the McLaren. Or sorry, Alex Hansen is in the McLaren, getting through the Mercedes of Beachley, trying to challenge ahead. George Elmer getting through cleanly. We see a car just going a little bit wide. Might give the position here. Pulgarin on the outside, giving the position to one of his fellow Mercedes, now alongside the 74 of... Who was that? I believe that was...
Maverick, 74 of Maverick.
Yep, Maverick. Here we go. The Mercedes ahead. This is quite a big Mercedes jumble we have here. Might as well be a spec race as a car in the grass, really dangerously close to the wall. Seems like everybody able to get through cleanly. Pretty chaotic start of the race here.
I mean, chaotic, sure, but overall incredibly clean. I don't think I saw a single contact from anybody trying to go and finding some of the action. Oh, look at that. Everybody seems to have made it okay except for Provolone, who was the car close to the wall there. Provolone seems to have gotten himself into a situation, but everybody else here, JP Reed just flying away already 1.3 seconds ahead of Mbanesk and Rivera. And that's, again, not an easy thing to do, especially in the rain. So JP either having practiced or found some magic with that Audi. Really, the car that's supposedly a good rain car, I think, is the Mercedes, because it has incredible traction control without losing out on too much time. But the Mercedes seem to be all packed in the relative bottom two-thirds with Sullivan, Bulgarin, Maverick, Bud, Georgeson, Winchester, ranging from the P13 to P18 positions.
Yeah, just at the back here, just like we said, just almost like a Mercedes spec race going on for now. We'll see if they could potentially find their pace toward the end of the race, as the conditions might be ever so changing and become favorable towards that Mercedes chassis. But yeah, like you said, Reed has a commanding lead as we see these two Mercedes overlapping into the first chicane. Winchester through, not quite able to hold the position though. Georgeson is going to fall back to 18th place. Winchester moves up in that orange and blue Mercedes, getting through the chicane nice and clean here.
Pretty good move by Winchester there. Battles happening up front though between Gross onto Freeman, Hansen onto Gross, and Beachley just behind. Beachley trying to battle for the win in last week's race, a little bit farther down the grid here today in 7th position, although that's with the addition of Reed and Rivera and Mbanesk. I don't think they were here last week, so yeah, you know, three positions behind where you were before. Not a bad position at all, considering these three have joined the race. So
yeah, not bad at all. And we see Mbanesk setting the fastest lap of the race, getting closer to the back of Reed in the lead. Now almost on the bumper, less than half a second separating the top two drivers. We see the wipers fully active in the Aston Martin, trying to clear the view for the driver to get by the Audi, but not close enough yet to pull off any sort of moves.
Vidic shouting out another watch company, Blancpain, another historic watch company, Swiss. But yeah, there are, again, battles through the entire field. We have Reed being pulled in by Mbanesk and Rivera. Rivera not too far behind. Freeman just behind in a 1.4 second gap, being hunted down by Gross, Hansen, Beachley just behind. And then the next closest group is Porkchop, Pronotis, Yatanashi. Then we have Bulgarin and Maverick close by in the two Mercedes. Then we have Georgeson and Lily Chambers kind of within a second of each other. So again, these battles all across the field here. But Mbanesk, like you said, something has happened to JP Reed, whether it's the pressures of having the car behind getting closer and closer, or just Whoa, brakes super early, almost opening up the door to Umbanis. What is going on, JP?
Yeah, like you said, maybe the pressure's getting to him, or maybe just miscalculating the pressure in his tires and having to manage a really unfavorable Audi in these conditions. A good move from Umbanis, though, getting through on the inside of turn 1 and now pulling away from the Audi in second place. Rivera is going to be trying to close the gap as close as he can now to the Audi, going to pull alongside as they go to the braking zone of the first chicane. We'll see who can get their car ahead, and Reed is going to keep that position. However, the Alpine behind getting really aggressive in the mirrors, going to try to shape up a move, going through this left-handed kink into another heavy braking zone, but doesn't seem to have quite a good overlap here to get a move done. The Audi running through the cone might have a track limit violation for that. The Alpine almost pushing the Audi through the corner as, they almost took a touch there, and that would have been a pretty bad touch for the Audi if they would have in fact collided there. But good on the Alpine to pull away, but now trying to line up a move on the inside. They're going to go side by side down the final hairpin through the fast chicane. Reed, unfortunately, gonna miss out on that position and now might have to slot back into 4th, and does slap back into 4th behind Freeman. And going into the pits,
it's got to be the tires. He's got to have had something wrong with the pressures there.
Yeah, just dropped back a lot from his qualifying pace and into the pits for an early pit stop. We'll see if that might cost him later as the conditions of the rain might change. But good running from the top 3 as Umbanis runs a little bit wide, opens up the door for Rivera to try to sweep through on the inside, and he does in the Alpine. He moves through in turn 2, and now back into the lead for the first time in the race is Ricardo Rivera. Umbanis, though, still right on the bumper of the Alpine, and while these guys are battling, Freeman is going to try to jump into this battle as well. As they go into the first chicane, Umbanis going to pull up alongside through the inside part of the first corner, but the Alpine really good on the brakes, able to maintain first place. The Chevy behind of Gross trying to pull up alongside the Aston Martin, as now the action has really picked up in these top 5.
Whoa, what a send by Alex Hansen, nearly taking up, but does make it stick for the excuse me, P4 position. What a move by Hansen, incredible. Getting himself up into P4. We've seen his late braking shenanigans before, but they're not shenanigans. If they work, then they end up being genius moves, and Alex Hansen does make it stick to get that P4 position. Ricardo Rivera managing to fight off Umbanis for the time being, but Umbanis, just that Aston Martin is what that car is, does seem to have a pretty decent speed on the straights, while the Alpine manages to get the advantage over the curbs, as we saw over the last couple of corners. Now, while Freeman was taking advantage of the battles happening up front, trying to get himself as close as possible, looks like Rivera and Umbanis have built themselves a bit of a gap to the cars behind, but that's one thing Freeman is having a hard time doing with Alex Hansen behind, Randy Gross behind, Beachley, Weaver, all within a second of each other. These battles are shaping up to be incredible. Hansen going wide, huge risky move there, but manages to live to tell the tale.
Yeah, just gonna run a little bit wide again. Potts Weaver in the Porsche number 13, trying to get close, trying to close the gap to these battles ahead, 1 second back. But still 40 minutes of racing to go. Incredible to think only 10 minutes of action. There's a change for the lead. Ricardo Rivera into second place. Let's take a look at how it got done. Rivera on the inside of the first part of the chicane, but Umbanis able to pull off the move on the outside. It's basically the same move Ricardo Rivera had on the previous lap to maintain P1, but Umbanis pulls that move right back and hops into the lead, and is now going to try to pull a gap to the Alpine in second.
Incredible racing here. Every second you think that one of these drivers is going to pull away, but for some reason, magically, they get close back together and some overtaking happens. What great racing we have here at Trackalicious in the GT4 Open Series, with only 40 minutes left in the final race of the night. You got Esteban Umbanes, Ricardo Rivera, Freeman, Hansen, all within a second of each other, all the way down to P7, followed by Gross, Beachley, Weaver, all fighting for position still, as we had an issue with JP Reed, whether it was tires, whether it was something else. You had an incredible pace in qualifying with 6/10 advantage to the cars behind, not managing to keep that advantage in the race, having ducked out, fixed some stuff, back on the field now, leading the pitted cars in 16th place. We'll see how those shake up through the race as the rest of these cars stop and really find out what the true nature of the situation is and what the situation of the race is as everything neutrals back out for pit stops.
Yeah, like you said earlier, it'll be interesting to see how everybody's pit strategy plays out, as there is that 25-second fixed time for fuel. It'll be interesting to see if some drivers elect to take on new wet tires, or maybe the weather might even change in the closing stages of the race to where they could potentially risk it and go on dry tires, but we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. But yeah, like you said, the 25-second pit stop for sure for fuel, and then it's the driver's choice if they want to take that extra 5 seconds to take new rubber as well.
Yeah, Potts Weaver here chasing down Beachley still. Beachley managing to really maintain the gap behind, but is also paying attention to the gap ahead as he's chasing down Gross in that lovely Camaro livery. Is the traction control on the Mercedes going to be enough to give him some sort of an advantage? Half a second now as he goes over the curbs and the bumps of the single corner of the final chicane, making his way onto the straight. Now gonna tuck behind that ginormous command. Now, the Mercedes is a big car. You can see that relative to the Porsche behind. But the Camaro is an even bigger car, and it's just incredible to see the size difference between those two and the Porsche behind. Beachley, size does not matter for Beachley. Looking left, looking right, going through the first couple of corners here, trying to find something to make a move work. Unlike some of the other tracks that we were at, Zolder is a track in which overtaking is a possibility, as we've seen multiple times in the front runners, and now Beachley trying to do the same. Battles between Freeman and Hansen up front, and battles in the background here between Gross, Beachley, and Weaver.
Yeah, any one of these drivers could end up on that podium position too, just seeing out how this action's playing out. We'll have to again wait and see how all the pit stops cycle through, but good action through the top 10 in the first 13 minutes of the race so far. Plenty of changes for the lead as Reed sets the fastest lap of the race in 16th place, having already completed his pit stop. So he's showing that he has good race pace now after seemingly having some sort of issue at the start of the race. Now able to find his groove and find his pace. Has a good gap ahead to 15th place, so he has some good clean air to run in as well. Doesn't have to worry about any sort of battles in front, doesn't have to look at his mirrors behind, just able to race his own race at the moment.
Yeah, Reed's 40.675, a half a second faster than the next fastest, who is Esteban Umbanes with a 40.675 to Umbanes' 41.1.
Yeah, good pace advantage at the moment for Reed. Of course, Umbanes had to deal with pulling off a few moves on Rivera to get into some clean air in the lead of the race. We'll see if he is able to find some more pace under that Aston as he tries to pull out an even bigger gap over Rivera, which is 1.6 seconds at the moment. Here we have a battle between the two Mercedes of Spady Bud and Winchester. This is for 13th place. Spady Bud able to get the move done and gets that 224 2025 Mad Fox machine up into 13th place. Going to try to chase down Maverick ahead. Has a bit of a gap though, around 10 seconds. Oh, and he goes over the curb. It has a bit of a slide, has to correct it. That's not going to help him down the straight, as Winchester's going to try to get a move done around the outside. We've seen this done before. We'll see if they can do it. Oh, a little bit of a contact, a wiggle from Spady Bud, but able to get it under control in the braking zone. Has to cut over the chicane, and that's going to give a good overlap to Winchester here as he goes through the inside of the kink. We'll see if Spady Bud has any sort of response into the braking zone. No, just pulls behind. And he's going to have to try to get that position back from Winchester on the next lap.
That was a good couple of corners again. Spady, having learned from his lessons of the past, surviving another couple of intense corners and living to tell the tale. While we do continue to have battles up front here, my goodness, these guys are so close after so long. And I did misquote earlier. While Reed's fastest lap was a 40.6, the front runners are a little closer, not quite as close to Reed as you would want them to be, but they are at 40.9 for Umbanis and 40.99 for Rivera, who are nearly identical, only 0.02 between Rivera and Umbanis, but not quite as fast as Reed, with 0.3 advantage to these guys, running in free wet air and doing lap after lap of this is gonna get him an immense advantage. While he does have an advantage, that early pit stop may hurt him in the long run. He probably is gonna come out front if he manages to maintain good, clean, head down, focused laps, but he's gonna need it. He's gonna need all the gaps in the world to be able to make it all the way to the end and not get challenged by Umbanis and Rivera from behind.
Yeah, we see just exiting the pits there was Potts Weaver in the 13 Porsche. He is going to come out behind Reed there in the Audi, so Reed does have a good pace and able to get through one of the top runners who is the first to stop. Potts Weaver was running up, I believe, in 6th place or 7th place, just behind Beachley here, who dives into the pits now, trying to not to get undercut by the Porsche of Weaver. We'll see where Beachley will come out after his stop, as this is potentially going to trigger more drivers to come in to the pits.
Welcome, freshly joined chatters. Adam Strange, how are you doing, Miss Trackalicious? Hello, boss lady. Shouting out the hat that we have. Trackalicious merch in store now, if you haven't seen already. We got hats, we got t-shirts, we got pants, we got undies. Those are probably my favorite. The pole position underwear is definitely something that you're going to want to have in your drawers.
Yeah, especially with Valentine's Day coming up too.
Valentine's Day. Ladies, girlfriends and wives, get your significant others that sim racing gear. Randy here, still tight to Hansen, chasing down after Hansen's heroic braking into the chicane earlier. The bravery of these guys running all the way out into the curbs is it sends tingles down my spine. I'm worried that at any point in time they're just gonna whip their cars into a 360 and be facing well, I was gonna say the wrong way, but that would be a 180 if I remember my many years of engineering degree correctly.
Yeah, we've seen it a couple times where a few drivers have run out wide and have made the car really take a pretty big wiggle on the exit, trying to apply the power onto any sort of straight. But yes, that the curbing adds a whole other element, or sorry, the wetness adds a whole other element to the curbing in difficulty in negotiating them, especially when applying the power. As we see the Camaro here trying ever so hard to close down the gap on Hansen ahead in the McLaren. The McLaren going a little bit offline down the main straight, perhaps trying to cool the tires a little bit, as the racing line might be developing a little bit, as we see a drive-through for Pork Chop just 20 minutes into this one, most likely for track limits. Gonna have to serve that within 3 laps. Looks like he is serving it already, so we'll just have to wait and see where he comes out. He was up in the lead of the amateur category, so hopefully that won't cost him too much time The pit lane around Zolder not too long, so most likely will cost him around 40 to 50 seconds.
Interesting. Yeah, that's unfortunate for Porkchop. Again, the slightest of mistakes causing huge issues. Now, Zolder isn't the easiest of places to avoid those cuts, right? Because you really need to cut the chicanes to maximize your lap time. And as you figure it out in the wet, right, it's slightly different than the dry race that he just ran. So I'm sure that's probably what caught him out. As we see Gross continuing to chase down Alex Hansen. Hansen been running a lot of ACC lately. Is going to be pretty impressively difficult to pass. And that's probably the move. Whoa, maybe not that aggressive into the pits, but hey, practice your pits, folks. Mike Doss says it all the time. Huge advantages to be gained and lost. Seconds worth of time to be gained and lost, whereas that probably would take you days to practice for lap time.
Yeah, just a few feet away from disaster. They're almost crashing that Camaro into the wall on pit entry, but pretty much perfecting that entry as he gets it just right and able to keep it out of the wall and gets it into the pit box safely. Ricardo Rivera here running in second place, 1.1 seconds back of Umbanesk, not really able to pull out any sort of big gap over the Alpine behind. So Ricardo Rivera is still well in contention for the lead of the race. We'll have to wait and see just where these two come out after everybody cycles through in the pit stops relative to Reed as well, who has already stopped.
Yeah, I am really interested to see if they have if they did a half and half or if they're going full length. I'm not quite sure, but very interested to see where they end up as the pits all get sorted out. Now, I do want to go see, while Rivera's keeping them honest, Reed here, where did he end up? It shows Reed behind Freeman and Gross, but in reality, it's just the timing charts updating. Reed still the front-running car for all of the pitters. We're just waiting for them to cross the timing charts here, the timing line, and there we go. The sector line crossed, and that is a effective P1 for JP Reed. Now, that's a lot closer than I remember Alex Freeman being to Rivera and Umbanis. So I don't know, Kuja. This might not be enough for JP to slot in front of those two when the pits happen. It's kind of the reason why I do want to stick with these guys to see whether in the next 2 minutes they're gonna be pitting, and if they do, how they shape up with JP Reed having all of those clean laps and the fastest lap of the race.
Yeah, we can only presume that Reed took new tires because we saw him going so slowly at the start of the race. Like, potentially he just miscalculated what pressure he needed in his tires, and that may have cost him that pace advantage he had from qualifying. So from our reckoning, most likely Reed did take new tires, and that is an extra 5 seconds added to his pit stop, so that could have potentially contributed to how far down the order he seems to be relative to Freeman and Gross, as the gap is really close between those two. Ricardo Rivera getting ever so closer to the back bumper of Umbanesk ahead, just reeling in that Aston just a tenth at a time. Now the gap less than a second as they approach as they approach the line to start their 14th lap of the race. Ricardo Rivera in that little Alpine, just being able to stay as close as he can to the Aston ahead, not really falling too far back. Umbanesk at the same time not really having a big pace advantage to pull away from the Alpine, as we see the car currently in P3, Hansen, diving into the pits. We'll see where he comes out relative to Freeman, Gross, and Reed, who have already stopped, as we see one of the lapped cars getting out of the way of the front runners. Good respect from the 707, giving the racing line to these two as they are able to continue on in the lead of the race.
In that
sorry,
Kuja, that last lap was a 4/10 advantage for Ricardo Rivera, getting him into that half a second gap, really making Umbanis be keeping Umbanis honest, as they say, right? Having to think about the car behind. This is exactly what you want if you're JP Reed. JP really doing a fantastic job, and I think you're right. I think that there's a pretty good possibility that the Freemans and the Grosses, Beachleys and the Weavers didn't take tires where JP Reed might have, but come out with such incredible pace to make up those all those seconds lost. That's the guess anyways, right?
Yeah, of course we can only presume so much coming up from the commentary box. We don't have all of the information we need to absolutely get everything spot on correctly 100% of the time. So yeah, just our best presumption from our experience in the game, in the sim, and our experience from racing. Just kind of trying to provide as much insight as we possibly can. We can see if we can ask him at the end of what happened there. But yeah, in the meantime, these first two not really able to pull that far of a gap from each other as we see them negotiating a bit more lapped cars. I believe that is the 74 of Maverick getting out of the way of the leaders.
Yeah, well,
looking to cost. Go ahead.
Sorry, while he did get out of the way, he was it was kind of an unfortunate position for Ricardo Rivera, because looked like Umbanis managed to get through quite cleanly, and then Rivera had to compromise his apex, dropping him down 8 tenths now. Again, all these little things not good for these two, but there is going to be one driver who's going to be happy about that, and that's JP Reed.
Yeah, of course, just those little bit of battles, little bit of fights between lapped cars. Of course, you don't really know what all the cars are doing ahead of you. You can't really get into all the drivers' heads, so you really just want to maximize your advantage as best as you can and not get slowed down. But at the same time, you don't want to compromise your race by getting into some sort of incident, especially with a lapped car.
That being said, you know, we would have thought that JP, with the new tires and the new setup or whatever it is that he did in pits, would be just able to walk away from Alex Freeman, but no, says Freeman. I am coming for you, JP Reed, and I want that position bad. Wiggling left and right, both at the limit of traction. Does the Aston have enough to make it happen as they both go through the back straight here, sending it full throttle? JP Reed having the advantage, but the Aston coming in, trying to make something of it. JP, lots of bounce happening after that curve. That would scare the crap out of me.
Yeah, he'll certainly feel that through the force feedback of his wheel too, not having any sort of control of the car as it does that. And yeah, not really being able to apply any power down too, as the rear is bouncing all over the place, but still getting a pretty decent run out of that corner, being able to maintain the gap to Freeman behind. But Freeman still staying as close as he possibly can to that Audi. Of course, these cars could be stronger in different parts of the track. We saw Freeman be really strong in that first high-speed section of the track, those sweeping right-hand corners getting right to the bumper of the Audi. But through the chicanes, the Audi seemed to really have an advantage, being able to get out of those chicanes really quickly and apply the power through the straights where it really matters, so that the Aston does not have any sort of advantage into any braking zone. But as we see here, the Aston getting ever so closer at the end of the lap, trying to pull off moves in the first sector, where the Aston seems to have a really good pace advantage, having a really good grip as he tries to look down the inside, trying to force the Audi to make a move out wide, but the Audi not bulging at all, keeping its position on track ahead.
And that position is going to be a critical one, as Alex Hansen just behind. I feel like I heard you say Hansen, but I didn't hear what you said, but does have the fastest lap of the race now, as I was paying attention to Plebeian Racing coming into chat. Thank you so much, Dave. Appreciate your support and love from the plebs. Hope you're doing well. My face does not really deserve much of anything. I could barely convince my wife that it was worth much, so glad that you think it's worth the sub. That's the most I've ever gotten out of my face. Well, no, second to my wife, of course. The most I've gotten out of this face. I appreciate the sub. Thank you. Welcome. Hope you're doing well. And yeah, we have some fantastic racing. We had 2 double headers of the rookie series so far, and this is the other championship, the Open GT4s, where we have JP Reed being the fastest and the highest position of all the pitted racers, whereas we have Umbanis and Rivera battling for the non-pitted cars. These two super close to each other. Again, we see Alex Freeman battling for the top spot of the pitted cars here, dodging left, dodging right, now looking on the inside. Reed compromised Apex, but manages to stay ahead for the time being, and will have the inside of the second and third corners.
Yeah, we'll see if Freeman can have any sort of grip on that outside line. The Aston seems to, like we said, have pretty good pace around here, but while these guys are battling, the cars ahead are getting ever so closer. That's Beachley and Hansen in the background, providing another side-by-side battle next to these guys up here. Hansen, having that fastest lap of the race, seems to have found a really good amount of pace in that McLaren. Now 2 side-by-side battles going on the back straight. Let's see who pulls out ahead. Reed, a little bit of a bump there, but Freeman able to hold on, and so far keeps the place. Another little bump with Beachley in the Mercedes. Beachley bullying his way through, not necessarily bullying, but a little bit of contact just to get through that position. Now going to try to hunt down the Audi ahead as the 2 black and yellow cars battle it out here. The 14 Aston Martin and the 390 McLaren. Freeman versus Hansen. We'll see how this battle goes into the tight hairpin. McLaren having really good pace, as we've seen throughout the race, and setting the fastest lap of the race most recently after the pit stop cycle. But really good 4-car battle here for the overall, maybe we'll see if it is the overall lead at the end of all of the pit stop cycles. But yeah, very close battle between these 4 cars here.
The margins between heroes and villains are paper thin in racing. Hansen's late braking, once proven to be a heroic maneuver in this lap, shows him to be a villainous toucher of cars. Unfortunately, bumper to bumper, sending Alex from the position of pitted P1s down into the third, pitted P2, I should say, battling for that P1 position down into third place. Unfortunate move, but these 4 are still incredibly close to each other. Now it looks like Beachley, looking at JP Reed for that position, does get a good run. Now this is exactly what JP Reed didn't want to see. Is that going to be a situation in which the time lost is going to affect his overall race position? And we see Rivera and Umbanis in the pits. Rivera ahead of Umbanis, so something must have happened because Rivera was behind. I'm gonna go to free cam here because I want to see what's happening at the end of the pits. I want to see where these guys are. I want to see where they get out, and I want to see how close they end up being. We have Reed, Beachley, Freeman, Hansen, Gross, all by each other. Gross a little bit farther behind, but Reed, Beachley, Freeman, and Hansen coming through the last couple of corners. It looks like Rivera is out ahead of Umbanis. Rivera does manage to get out. It is going to be just through these corners here. Are the cars coming through going to have enough to make it through? Looks like Rivera is getting to pace and speed as the clump of cars coming in. Rivera does manage to get ahead, but are they going to get ahead of Umbanis? What is going to happen here? Oh my goodness, Umbanis with a big loss behind 4 different cars. Oh my goodness, going from hero to absolute loser in this lap. Unfortunately for Umbanis, that is a P6 position, but look at Rivera in the distance. That is incredible. I'm not sure what happened quite there, but Rivera is 5.8 seconds ahead of the gang behind.
Yeah, just before the pit stop, I was looking at that gap, and Rivera had almost a 5-second lead over Umbanis, so presumably there was some sort of a mistake, maybe contact between the two. But yeah, Umbanis unfortunately missing out on a few positions, dropping behind Rivera before the pit stop even happened, and then now dropping back behind this 4-car battle. And it seems like Reed is able to pull out a bit of a gap, now going to try to chase down Rivera in the lead. 5.5 seconds is the gap between the first two positions, as there's still a heavy battle going on between the positions being settled for third place between Freeman, Hansen, and Beachley. Umbanesk 1.2 seconds back, going to try his best to close down as best as he can in the last 15 minutes of the race.
It is going to be incredible to see. So JP Reed only has 15 minutes to try and close the gap. He's going to be wanting to look ahead, but Freeman isn't really giving him the room to breathe. And the error there isn't going to be massively in his favor, unfortunately. As, is that a car for position? Did Bulgarin just come out ahead of the pack here in an epic move?
I don't think so. I think he's unfortunately going to be lapped for position, and he appears to be down in 17th position overall, as we see one of the blue flags waving. I think that's going to be for that green Mercedes in that foreground, as there's a battle between the McLaren and the Aston Martin. Side by side, the McLaren with a big send. We'll see if he's able to get through the second part of the chicane ahead. Oh, and unfortunately, the McLaren spinning off in the foreground. Let's take a look at the replay and see exactly what happened here. The McLaren having a really good overrun on the Aston Martin, pulling up side by side. Oh, and there is a bit of contact between the two. The Aston going into the rear of the McLaren, and unfortunately sending that McLaren spinning, dropping it back behind the Chevy of Gross in 8th place, but ahead of the Mercedes of Elmer. So we'll have to wait and see how far up the field Hansen can climb after that unfortunate incident in the first chicane.
Yeah, Hansen now 1 for 3 on his sends, unfortunately for him. You know, it's wow. Incredible driving between the competitors here, and Hansen doing his best to be heroic, but just not simply playing out for him. And Pooja, I'm gonna send it back to you while we try to find this fun fact that's redeemed by Dave.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, Hansen unfortunately seemed like he had that move done, but not quite enough room for two cars to go there side by side, and he comes out the worst of the two competitors, but now able to get a move done on the Chevy as it goes wide. Touching a wheel onto that wet grass is really not going to help the Chevy in this battle for 6th place overall, as the Mercedes of Elmer goes through as well. And in the background there, it looks like Yatanashi getting side by side with the Chevy after its unfortunate trip into the grass. Yatanashi, the first of the amateur drivers, up into 7th place, as Reed dropping down the order, now down into 9th place. Not quite too sure. He looks like he had to make a second pit stop as we just tuned in on the replay. He is exiting the pit, so maybe just a fuel... yeah, hard to presume what happened there. Maybe just a fuel miscalculation, or had to stop for tires again. But yeah, JP Reed now back out of the pits in 9th place, as Gross up ahead of him picks up a drive-through penalty. That is going to cost him that position most likely, so Reed will move up to 8th after that penalty is served. Up at the top, Rivera with a commanding 8.5 second lead now over Beachley, over Freeman, over Umbanesk, over Hansen. Elmer in the 22 Mercedes in 6th, Yatanashi the first of the AM runners in 7th, Gross with that drive-through penalty in 8th. Here we have Reed in 9th in the Audi after just serving another pit stop. Chronotis behind him, rounding out the top 10. Sullivan in the 43 Mercedes, running not too far back. See if he can close down any sort of gap, or sorry, close up that gap and make any sort of move possible. Meanwhile, at the top here, Freeman getting closer and closer to Beachley after having a bit of contact with the McLaren of Hansen into this chicane that we are approaching now. but not quite close enough on this lap, it looks like, for Beachley and Freeman. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see how this battle plays out in the last 10-ish minutes of the race.
Yeah, and as we continue to look, the fun fact of the day is that the Belgian Grand Prix was run at Zolder from 1973 to 1984, a full 11 years. Most won by, well, I was going to say Ferrari, but Ferrari has 4 wins here through those years. Tyrrell Ford with 1, Lotus Ford with 2, Williams Ford with 1, McLaren Ford with another one. So I don't know if you want to count Ford as 5 wins or give the nod to Ferrari's 4. Niki Lauda, 2-time winner. Mario Andretti, Jody Scheckter, legendary names. Carlos Reutemann, all winners here at Zolder. And if that is not a fun fact enough for you, then I will say that the plastic or metal tip of a shoelace is called an aglet.
That is always a fun fact. Yeah, more on-track action here between Beachley and Freeman. Not quite close enough again on this lap. Oh, they're running pretty heavily onto that wet curb, getting the Aston pretty sideways, but seemingly have a pretty good grip still, as he's able to stay close to the bumper of the Mercedes ahead. This is a good battle we have for the top 2, or the last 2 steps of the podium, that is.
Redeeming more fun facts. Unfortunately, while we view the racing, I'm gonna have to be. I'm forced to do these fun facts by Dave here. We're gonna try a couple more here. Well, just to rhyme with the aglet, baby hedgehogs are called hoglets, and a watermelon has 92% water. That's a lot of percent water. I presume the rest is sugar because watermelons are absolutely delicious.
Yeah, probably those are the 2 contents. Or I guess the third you can add is the rind that, not quite tasty, but has to be there to protect that delicious inside.
Yeah. The irony of loving seedless watermelons is that they're so good not having to deal with the seeds, but then how are you going to make more of them if there are no seeds to be had? Just weird things I think about all the time. Well, back to the racing. Hansen going side by side with Mbanis. Now Mbanis got to be a little careful, as while Mbanis' car looks pretty clean, Hansen's not so much, having been in a couple of contacts here and there. Mbanis taking a very liberal line through what I think we earlier referred to it as the kink rather than the chicane.
Yeah, just not quite finding the grip on the outside as those 2 go side by side, just having to run out into the gravel and cut that corner. Good recovery here from Hansen after getting spun out of the chicane back up into 4th place. 4.7 seconds back from 3rd to see if he can get up onto that podium position. He does have the fastest lap of the race, so he does have the pace in clean air to provide a good lap. We'll see if the battle ahead between Beachley and Hansen will slow those 2 down, as on track here, Sullivan and Weaver going side by side into turn 1. The Mercedes having a good gap ahead, but Weaver trying the overcut down the inside now, but the Mercedes having a good advantage, taking a really good defensive line, just parking it through the apex. Porsche, though, getting good traction out of the exit. The Mercedes taking a bit of a wide line, but having good speed. The Porsche sends it through the inside of the fast right-hander, gets the move done, not running wide into the gravel, up into 10th place for Weaver in that 13 Porsche.
Great move by Weaver. Fantastic racing by these 2. Actually, some fun being had in the back here between Maverick and Spady Bud and Pork Chop, all 3 for position, actually, as we watch the rookie. That is not the line you want to take. Spady manages to hold it. Oh my goodness, I thought he was going to go around on that one, but managed to hold it. Great job holding that. Looks like Spady does have quite a bit of pace. Maverick not in form tonight, not quite sure. We're used to seeing Maverick quite a bit higher on the grid, but something not quite comfortable about Zolder. Maybe it's the curbs, maybe it's the car, maybe it's the rain. Lots of factors for someone learning ACC to deal deal with in one race, coming from the rookie series again. Maverick only having, what, 4 races under his belt. I think this is the 4th week of the GT4 rookie series and the open series, so not a lot of experience, still a lot of learning, and it's showing, but I'm sure we're going to see some great things from Maverick moving forward. Now, that being said, talking about great things, Alex Freeman still challenging Beachley, and as we click, loses about a half a second, dropping over a second behind. No longer that interesting to watch.
Yeah, just to touch on your point, Reese, that you mentioned earlier, Zolder also not that popular of a track in other sims, so perhaps it is, like most drivers, first time seeing Zolder when they play ACC. So yeah, perhaps just a bit of a learning curve, but nonetheless still seeming to enjoy that on-track action on the wet Zolder track, as Winchester running a little bit wide, not quite hitting the apex there, but maintains the car pointing in the right direction, trying to catch up to the rear end of Gross. We saw Gross battling for positions up in the top 5. Unfortunately for that Camaro, it has dropped back a few places into 12th.
Yeah, very unfortunate for Randy Gross, but again, these guys, so many battles happening through the field here. Nothing is quite determined yet, as the slightest mistake, slightest error, which is quite possible here with the chicanes at Zolder, will send you quite a few positions back. Now, Maverick chasing down Dr. Porkchop, Winchester chasing down Gross here, and Freeman not too far behind Beachley up ahead. Quite a few things happening. Gross also not too far behind Sullivan and the Mercedes up ahead. You can see in the different camera view here, but Gross having to worry about the Mercedes ahead, having to worry about the Mercedes behind, both bluish Benzes, and a bit of a sandwich of the Camaro, and it's getting tighter and tighter. Winchester closing it down, Gross closing it down. This is going to be a battle to the end, I think, with only a couple of laps left here, Kuja.
Yeah, only a couple laps to go. I was just looking ahead at 4th place. Hansen closing that gap to 2.5 seconds from 5.5 we saw earlier. So potentially he might even get into a battle with Freeman in the closing stages of the race for that final podium step. But yeah, riding here with Gross in a Mercedes sandwich, having a good gap behind, not letting that Mercedes get too close to pull off any sort of moves. But we see here the Mercedes pulling in off the racing line, perhaps just cooling the tires a little bit as they're getting a little bit hot towards the end of the 50-minute race we had. But Gross in that Camaro, maintaining the gap behind, moving up to 11th now. It looks like, unfortunately, somebody has disconnected ahead. Can't quite tell who that was, but yeah, I think one driver has dropped out.
Yeah, looks like they are getting closer and closer. Winchester now only a 10th behind, and Gross half a second. There is a wiggle from Sullivan up ahead. What is going to happen here? Getting incredibly close. 0.4 seconds. Scott does manage to get a good exit, but so does Winchester. Winchester threatening Gross here, does manage to dive back. It could be a matter of cooling tires. I think it's more so trying to distract the cars ahead. Looks like Gross gets a really good corner there, chasing down Sullivan really tight. I don't know, you might be right. It might be cooling tires, but it doesn't quite look like it is drying up. There is a bit of kind of a racing line. Sullivan goes wide. That's the opportunity for Gross. Gross looks on the outside. Is it just one or is it two? Winchester sending it as well. Not quite enough for him, but there is. Winchester still hanging out there quite a bit offline, both wiggling and wagging the tails of those Mercedes. Winchester is ahead, and that was unfortunately a 2-for-1 deal for Scott Sullivan, and not in the way that you would want it.
Yeah, just unfortunately dipping a wheel into the gravel of the exit of the first corner, not having a good overspeed into that next tight second corner, giving the he was on the inside, but he didn't quite have the speed. The Camaro able to go through on the outside, and the Mercedes of Winchester just following the car of Gross around the outside, and unfortunately for Sullivan, that does drop him back into 12th. with 1 lap to go as the leader has crossed the line for his final lap.
That is so frustrating. I've been in that position before, but that is not the only battle happening. We have Weaver and Kernotis here battling for more positions. They are in the top 10, but any mistake, any contact between these two might give Randy Gross quite the opportunity, only being 8 seconds behind. And while we wait for this battle to play out, never mind, it's happening right now. Weaver looking on the outside of that ginormous Mercedes and the itty bitty little Porsche. Really wouldn't want to get into much contact there. It does give him a bit of a bump. I don't know. I don't know if there's much to be said about that. Tends to happen when cars are trying to own the same portions of the track as they try to find the optimal line. But that is a quick escape from Potts Weaver going up into P8 with JP Reed up ahead in P7. What is going on with JP Reed? Does he have like dry tires or something? We're gonna pull JP Reed into the VC here, because I must understand there's no way that you're 6/10 faster than everybody else and then having this much trouble, as Kernotis takes advantage of a situation with Weaver being slowed down just behind JP Reed. Rivera finishing the race. Unfortunately, we did miss that portion. We do have Freeman finishing up in P2, Hansen just behind. But oh, this is where the action is. Unfortunately, we missed that little bit. What happened here? Kernotis, Weaver goes in, does a decent job. Kernotis unfortunately taps the back of Weaver just the slightest bit, turning him around. But as we mentioned earlier, is that an opportunity for Gross to come in? No, not quite yet. Gross right behind. Gross making a mistake, and that is a position for Winchester. Winchester going in, but they still have one more corner left to go, which is really a complex of a left and a right. Winchester on the outside, Gross on the inside. There's a spun. Potts Weaver loses 2-3 positions. That is a position for Randy Gross, and manages to maintain the head of Winchester, going all the way up into P8. P9 for Winchester, P10 for Sullivan. Some consolation after the poor last couple of laps that he had. Oh my god, Yatanashi all the way up into P4. My goodness, what a insane race this has been. Wow, Kuja, what a finish to that race.
Yeah, it all really picked up there in the last lap of the race. Good racing from everybody at the top. Unfortunately, it looked like Umbanis dropped down to P5 after having a really good start going up into the lead of the race, but nonetheless able to finish the race in 5th place. As we see the finishing order on the left there. Yeah, all the action just happened right at the end of the race there. People battling all up and down for position, people spinning out left and right. In that final quarter, we saw Weaver spun around, parked, facing the wrong direction, and fortunately for Gross and Winchester, they were able to avoid him, and Gross picking up a few fantastic places at the end of the race.
Yeah, that was incredible. I'm trying to get some of the drivers into the green room here. And I really want to know what's going on with JP. JP, if you're listening, come in. I want to see what was happening. What happened? And Dave, answering your questions, I didn't ignore them or miss them. You should farm points. I'm mad at you and disappointed that you hadn't been following Tracklicious after being friends for so long, but I get it. You've done some shady things recently, and I'm still mad at you for that. So I guess I'll just add being mad at you on top of being mad at you for all the other things. And on top of that, yeah, you do not get a refund on the points that you spent, because you got your reward for the points, albeit a pretty weak fun fact. I must admit so myself, although I learned something new. And yeah, the wife has committed to streaming when you rack up those points. She comes on here right next to me over here and does stream alongside with us. An incredibly loving, supportive, and amazing wife, just so that I don't get into trouble later. All right. Kuja, we have addressed the concerns of those in chat. We have Hansen and
Same
Freeman
position.
popping in here with us. I want JP Reed and Rivera in here as well. Hansen, let's start off with you. I think you ended up in P3. How was that race for you?
I think that is P3. That was hard. My tires were red all the time. For some reason, I think the tire pressure was okay, but then it went to 35 everywhere because the track was not wet; it was damp. So that was bad.
So you guys were battling tire pressures. It sounds like you had some situations going on there. Were you? So I presume that you were in wet tires then.
Oh yeah, dry tires here would be suicide.
Okay, so Alex, great job on the Hansen, great job on the P3 there. Freeman, a P2 for you. That is a fantastic result for you. Tell us a bit about your race.
Man, that was an absolute battle. Yeah, kind of like Alex Hansen was saying, like I was struggling a little bit with tire pressures. It kind of surprised me a little bit. Although mine were only 32. And then early in the race, I saw JP pit early, and I thought he might have been struggling with the same thing. So I actually kind of pitted a little bit earlier than I expected to. Actually, it kind of worked out.
And that, I mean, I was impressed by the pace that you were showing. It was cool to see. So good job on that. Really impressive. And congratulations on the P2. Now, before we get to Ricardo Rivera, JP Reed, you put in a quali laps 6/10, besting the next best person, who's Ricardo Rivera, who's no slouch, we know. What happened, JP, in the race? You were in such a commanding position, then all of a sudden went away, and then you had 2 pits, and we were trying to figure it out. So why don't you educate us as to what happened in the background there? You are muted, FYI.
Yeah, I know. Look, can we just reflect on the qualifying? That was probably the only good thing
We
that happened
mentioned the
this
qualifying.
evening.
We know what happened in qualifying. It was a phenomenal job. Great job on the qualifying, but we want to know what happened in the race.
I just had no experience in the wet conditions, so kind of threw something together. The tire pressures were completely out at the start, so they were good for like 2 laps until they just started roasting. I was probably trying to overdrive things a bit. Made the mistake to let the first couple of guys through and thought, all right, let's try and fix our tire issues. But I didn't have my strategy set up correctly, so once I went into the pits, I went in and kind of just estimated what I had and basically went out with the same settings. By the end of the race, I had 1.1 left on the treads on the rears, and I couldn't brake in time to make any of the turns. Got a drive through. It was a mission.
I mean, the qualifying was fun. We had to use. Did you guys use dry tires?
In
Because-
quali, yeah.
I did use dry tires in qualifying.
And they didn't work. But I think that's better than putting wet.
Well, JP, despite your adventures in the race, we did enjoy seeing your dominant performance in qualifying. Great job. Glad to have you back. We talked about your presence at the Maguire's 12 hours of Bathurst. Really cool to see live shots of someone from the community partaking. And we hope, I've already told the boss lady who is in chat, I hope that one day we'll be present right there with you, partaking in that race and being a witness to it. With that being said, there is one man on the top step of this race, and welcome back, Ricardo Rivera. What a phenomenal performance by you. You know, there were some questionable times in which we were wondering whether you had the pace to make it, but ultimately your experience prevailed and came up on the top step. How was the race for you?
Oh, I have a little secret, which was by mistake, and it did work out. I did the entire race with the same dry tires.
You were running on dry tires?
Yeah, I put the wet pressure tires. I changed my strategy just in case it dries up. I had a pit strategy with dry pressures, one with wet pressures, but I forgot to put the wet tires. So as soon as I hit drive, I said, "Oh no, I have the wrong tires." But after doing, I don't know, the first few laps, I think this is working, and I'm not gonna change tires to then jump into the first position by saving the 5 seconds. And apparently, I don't know, it worked out.
That is unreal. That's crazy. Kuja, I don't think we could have guessed that at all. We just presumed everybody was running wets. But Ricardo, it's no surprise that your skill is so much superior than the lack of grips on the tire. So congratulations. Welcome back. Great job on the P1. And yeah, look forward to seeing you next week.
Yeah, see you, and thanks for everything.
Take care. Well, Kuja, that is the end of our racing tonight. Pretty fun. We had immense amount of battles, left, right, and center.
Yeah, great action in that first race of the rookies GT4. Great battles all throughout the second race as well in that 20-minute race series we had, followed by that fantastic wet 50-minute race of the GT4 Open Series. So yeah, fantastic action all throughout the field, first to last. Everybody provided fantastic action for us to watch up here, and yeah, thank you all for doing that. And yeah, thanks for everybody for watching. Really appreciate you guys having me, and thank you. Yeah.
Well, thank you to all the drivers. Put on phenomenal races today. Thank you to all the commentator. Thank you, Kuja, for hanging out with me. I really appreciated not having to do that all by myself. And thank you all to the viewers. I love having you guys here. Thank you for the engagement in chat. Are we broadcasting tomorrow? We don't have anything scheduled tomorrow. Tuesday's like the one day that we don't stream, but we stream Mondays, we stream Wednesdays, we stream Thursdays, we stream Fridays, and Sundays. So, yeah, so we do have a raid created for this Dad is Bad. And he does do push-ups. My Pico races in the Thursday iRacing series. Go give him some love. Go give him some follows. Every raider and every follow he gets, he has to do a push-up, and we're trying to get him to do more push-ups. Much love from you here at Trackalicious. Go get some merch from Trackalicious.com and see you on Wednesday. See you guys.